right, I would like to call the Finance Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Roll, board members, as I call your name, please reply present for the record. President Green.
Present.
Vice President McNeil.
Present.
Assistant Secretary Treasurer Del Maroney.
Present.
Trustee Gilbert.
Present.
Trustee McIntosh.
Is present.
And myself, Trustee McIntyre. At this time, the board will hear any comments from the public.
Hello, my name is Jeanette Edwards. I'm president of Brownell Homes Neighborhood Association. I'm also a member of North Flint Action Council. I volunteer at Brownell, I volunteer at Homes, and I volunteer Southwestern when they're with me. But I came here to ask you guys to think about putting some of that money towards hiring Afro-American teachers. And also teachers that are going to be understanding to our children's needs and what they're going through. I'm going to tell you an incident. This student is a Flint student. He has been being beaten by his daddy. Saturday, the dad jumped on the stepmother. She ran away. He started beating on the child, and the child ran 3 blocks, started beating on everybody's door with nobody let him in, and then he went to a friend of mine's house. He called the police. The police did not come. He got there at 4. He called me. He said, Miss Edwards, it is now 8:30. And this child been at my house since 4. What do I do? I called Chief Green. He said, I'm going to get a car over there right now. And he did. And when they took the child to his house, they had left the 3-year-old boy there. And they examined the boy. He had been beat numerous of times. But he felt like he couldn't go to his teacher or the principal or anybody and tell them what was happening at home. That should not happen in Flint schools. I was a parapro for 20 years. Any one of the children would come to me or our other parapros. They're not being trained. Everybody should be trained to be sensitive. We got a little money. Some of that should go for special training. Larry Simpson was my immediate supervisor when I worked for the board in learning support. And we had every kind of sensitive training that they put out. They don't do that with the parapros. They don't do that with the teachers, with the custodian. If somebody could have went to this child, and said, you okay? The boy would be dirty at school. Nobody helped this child. And he ran them down the street, banging on people's doors. I understand them not letting me in, because they didn't know if his father was going to come. That shouldn't happen. And we be wanting to volunteer at the school. They act like they don't want us there. Why do you don't want me in my child's school to volunteer, to help read, to help clean the child up? Stuff like that shouldn't be. Train us. Put some of that money to train us to help the children. These children are our future. We are there to help them. I couldn't read when I was growing up. They stuck me in a corner and wouldn't teach me and said I was too illiterate. But I graduated from Mount Adult with honors. And I started working in a group home with mentally challenged kids. I know how to work with them. But they won't give me the opportunity to volunteer. I don't have no felonies. I don't have a record. Why shouldn't I be picked to help monitor a child in a lunchroom?
Ma'am, thank you. Thank you. We do have a 3-minute limit.
Okay.
Your input. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from the public? I'd like to remind the public that each person has 3 minutes with which to speak. Mr. Woodson?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
I'm
brother.
Shannon again, like I said before. We have some issues here. The governor is sending money down here to the district. I would really like to know, are we still, is the school district still paying for school nurses, behavior counselors, and school aid? Do the school pay out their pocket, out the general fund? And do the school district get to pick who they want? Because when I looked at the Flint Declaration, it said that $2 million comes to Flint District, but $6.1 million goes to GISD. Now, when Ms. Green was the president, that was one of the main things that she brought up, and that's what we started fighting about with GISD. How do we get to go down again, or we start this fight again? Treasurer needs to find out with the state, why is this money coming down to GISD instead of the school district? Why is that? And last but not least, let me say this. As an activist, I'm going to keep saying what I say. Not one time have I threatened anyone physically or do any bodily harm. If you look at the videos, you'll hear where I said, whoa, and are you serious? Because people have this tendency to accuse people of doing things without it being factual. At least when I say something about someone, I have documents to back it up. So when you say something on the board, people take your word for what it is. And, you keep making false accusations and all this. Ain't nobody threatening you. See, when you was an activist over on this side, you did the same thing I was doing. But now that you are elected official, you feel that an activist can't speak their mind. And I'm going to keep on doing it. I've been doing it for over 10 years now. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. And if you get offended, so be it. Quit. You're in a public arena. You're in a public seat. So it is what it is. And I came up here plenty of time saying, hey, y'all, listen, y'all need to work together because y'all starting to look like city council one day. Because you're sitting up here fighting and you having personal hidden agendas and you fighting each other because of your ego, your attitude and everything. I thank you very much.
Taking public comments at this point. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Okay. Thank you. Board members, once again, I thank you for joining me this evening for a continuation of our open dialogue about the EDEP. Joining us this evening is the board's finance, I'm sorry, guys. We have a double timer. Joining us this evening is the board's finance consultant, Mrs. Carrie Sikelski, as well as Superintendent Jones and Finance Director, Mrs. Dumpre. Last week we had a great discussion, and I'm looking forward to another night of collaboration surrounding the enhanced deficit elimination plan. Very good script. Remember, we are going to do what is best for the future of our Flint students. Yes, we are. Okay. Now I wish to open the floor for discussion and seek a motion and a second to suspend the rules like we did last Thursday's evening so that we can have a robust discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'm going to take a roll call vote to suspend the rules. As I call your name, please say aye or nay. President Green.
Aye.
Vice President McNeil.
Aye.
Assistant Secretary Treasurer Del Maroney.
Aye, yes.
Trustee Gilbert.
Aye.
Trustee McIntosh.
Aye.
And myself, trustee McIntyre, aye, passes 6-0. Okay. So we're going into new business, which is to discuss the EDEP scenarios. And just to recap, to get us all back on the same page, we have a few scenarios that Ms. Dumpre compiled last year. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it over the years, or over the last year. And on Thursday, we kind of looked things over. We had a few questions that we'd like to ask the superintendent and Mrs. Dumpre, just because we didn't know the answers to that. And we're also going to be looking at the enrollment figures. We're going to be looking at the building footprint plans. And this is with the objective of moving forward in conjunction with the strategic plan so that we have a financial understanding of what is possible, what we want, what our vision is, and how we can move forward. Does that sort of make sense? So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to our financial expert.
Well, first of all, I think maybe just to start, does anybody have any questions about what we discussed last week in the EDAP? Because I believe we have new ones, correct?
No, not a new EDAP.
Not yet?
No.
Okay.
So we gotta have information from here
Okay,
to go and do new EDAP.
perfect. Okay. Well, these ones were just, obviously they're last year, so they haven't updated. So the fund balance and all of those things weren't, updated. So I didn't know because Brian had said he was updating them. So, but anyways, for the rest of the board, is there any questions before we start having that discussion about the EDAP and what kind of, what your thoughts have been over the week as far as, what our next steps are, where we want to head.
Before we start, I would like to point out, because I think Ms. Dumpre, you had given me an email indicating that we were told we were waiting on the Treasury to get the deadlines. It is now March, and we have a March deadline, but we still don't have the state or the Treasury's exact date for anything.
So when I asked them when we need to submit this, they asked what time would it take for us to gather the information to be able to present some scenarios so that we could have an EDAP to present to them. And so that's when I was working with Brian at Baird, and I said, okay, we need to put together a timeline so that I can prepare for you, because that's what you asked for, a comprehensive timeline, so that we can say, okay, what's it gonna take? So we need to have these meetings like this to discuss what would the board like to see, so that way I can give you some scenarios based upon what decisions you all would like to make. And then I can present scenarios, and then once we agree upon a scenario, that's the one that we would take before the full board and approve, and then I can submit it to the state.
So at this time, there's not a deadline.
It's not a hard deadline that I have been provided. That is correct.
So we were just told March.
So they
Something
originally told me
definite.
March.
Okay.
They originally told me March, which is why I shared that with you. And so when you asked about it and I contacted them, the last conversation I had with her was, what time do you all need to be able to get this done? And she said, work with Brian to determine when you all do your comprehensive timeline, what time do you need to get it done? And
Mrs. Sokolsky, I know that you reached out to Brian. Has he responded in any way to your emails or your phone calls?
so our last conversation, Brian and mine, which is the email that I shared with you, was that they were supposed to be preparing that for me so that I could have the timeline to present to you today. I have not received it, which is why I haven't been able to supply it to you. I followed up with them yesterday when I sent that email, and they told me they were still working on it. And so I don't have it to present it to you, to give you the time.
Okay. And I believe Pastor Gilbert was first. And did you have your hand
No,
raised, right? Okay. Pastor Gilbert, and then we'll go to.
Who does Brian report to?
Brian is for Baird, and Baird is our municipal advisor. And this is a municipal advisor that we received from the Treasury.
Do you have a contract with the district or the board? Did
Yes,
we
he
approve
does.
Contract?
Yes, he does.
Well, he needs to be here.
Paying him?
So he wasn't available this evening.
It wasn't.
I already asked him about it last week when I first knew that we were gonna have this meeting today.
Could
I
you-
asked him, and he said he had a commitment already for today and tomorrow, because I told him that those were the 2 days that I had
I
off
do
that I would be
remember-
available.
Someone said it at our last meeting, so thank you. Possible to, we will have ongoing meetings, maybe, I don't know, maybe every week or whatever. But
If
we
tell
need
me
him-
when
we need
they
him
are-
here.
When you tell me when they are, I can let him know, and I can check for his availability.
Okay, thank you,
Because
Ms.
he has other clients that he works
Commitments,
for
yes,
himself.
yes, he does, yes, yes, he does.
So are we paying him?
Yes, we pay for research, right?
That's what I'm saying.
And then we
And he's under
get,
contract.
we apply for a grant from the
Maybe we ought to
state,
cut his
and
contract.
they help to cover the costs.
Yeah, okay. And like I mentioned to everybody last week, I asked questions and I already know the answers to, but, and Joyce, you said, okay, and then so Danielle, and then,
So just out of curiosity, the first deadline that they gave us was, I think it was March 30th or something like that. Are they showing us grace and extending the date for us, or is
Absolutely.
everybody else has a, okay?
Absolutely, they're showing us grace.
And
Because-
why?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No.
cut you off, but realistically, last year,
Mm.
when we were trying to do this, and the board said we need to have this type of information,
Okay,
all of these studies and all this type of information to help make an informed decision.
Right.
That's when they said, okay, yeah, we'll help you. We'll pay for the services to give you the information that you need to help you make an informed decision so that we can do an EDAP that will have data. Using the data, because we said we wanted to have data to be able to make these kind of decisions.
Right.
And so that's when we got these services,
Mhm.
and the services were complete. And now we're back to, okay, so let's put together this EDAP. Now you have the data that you asked.
because that makes me nervous, because I appreciate the mercy and the grace that they're showing us, but without a date, it kind of makes me a little nervous. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's your fault at all, but yeah, we need Brian or somebody to kind of give us, more detailed information for sure. And he has other contract, that's cool, but we paying him too.
Just one quick thing, just to reiterate what Mrs. Dunphy is saying is, I think Treasury is seeing that you're putting in some hard work,
Okay,
and so they're not gonna hold you to a date because
Okay.
they wanna allow you to have opportunity to have these discussions without a firm deadline. Now, if these talks cease and Ayana says board is not making decisions, I'm
Right.
sure at that time it'll be, maybe where they will come in and say, we have a hard deadline. But, they see the work that you're putting together, they know we were meeting, I'm sure she shared that.
Right.
So just given my brief history with them, I think they see that you guys are putting in the work, and we're not gonna hold you to that deadline now. I still would we can't get it done before March 31st, right? Your cows next week, your regular,
Mhm.
but maybe by April
Right.
meetings, you guys, maybe by the end of this month, you guys have a plan that you can solidify and move forward with, As long as these things keep happening in a positive way, then the state is going to,
Okay,
extend that to us.
great,
Okay.
okay, thank you so much.
I just wanted to say concerning Mr. Leflier. We've been waiting on Mr. Leflier since this time last year. Mr. Leflier stepped to the mic on his own.
Yeah.
Volunteered his services to this district, this board.
Mhm.
Said that he was gonna work with us and help us do this, that, and the other.
Sure did.
I called Mr. Leflier for 3 months. He never called me back, never returned a call, and ain't showed up for this board yet. I would like to throw myself at the mercy of the board and see if we can get somebody else besides Mr. Leflier. And I'm not trying to nail anybody to the cross, but like Ms. Green said, we're paying just like everybody else, and you can't tell me you've been so busy since last year. You can't make it in a year, you can't handle this contract. Our district gotta go without, we gotta not get our work done, cause he's so tied up with everybody else. Well, is he giving up any of his money, is he returning them funds to the district? I mean, I find it's a slap in the face for you to step to the open mic, volunteer your services,
Yes, he did.
get the board all excited, and then never call, show back up, never reach back out. Moden called him, I had called him, everybody else on the board had called him.
Email.
Carrie Zakelski been calling him. So this guy is untouchable for the district, but this district is paying him. That's a problem.
So he does respond to my phone calls.
He
and my
does?
emails. Yes, he does. And so that's why I'm saying I've been
Well, that's
communicating.
you. What about the rest of us? Because he volunteered to help us. No offense to you, but he volunteered to help us. And we've never heard back from him. I understand he talks to you, but what about us? is he only support for you, then I can accept that and understand that.
That's what.
But when he stepped to the mic, he presented himself like he was a support to the district as well as the board.
So he is a support for the district, and he helps me to do these scenarios. So when you guys give me the information, they put it in the scenarios and they pull it out and we print it out to give to you. That's the work that they do for us. They put together these EDEP scenarios. I take all the information, I say, yep, we want this, we don't want that, add this to think about that, we can use this amount, let's do that. They put it in the scenarios and bring it out and produce them. And that's what I provide to you all. And that's what will have to go to the state to get approved. I need that work done.
Okay.
Well, I understand you need the work done. I hope he's not the only person doing the work. We need some work done too. We need help too. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Dunphy, and that's to be considered, but I think it's just rude of him to not, in over a year, to have not reached back out to anybody in the district other than you. I mean, because he volunteered, like I said, to help us, but I'm not gonna be the dead horse. Okay, but thank you, ma'am.
Is there anything that we need to do, Ms. Dunphy, to have him, also communicate with Ms. Sikowski, given that she's also a financial consultant, that the board is selected to assist in this?
I will find out.
Because Carrie was saying that previously she had had no, I'm sorry to speak, but to put words in your mouth, that you'd had no issues communicating with him. I'm just wondering, maybe it's like you said, he's the consultant and he only speaks to the CFO. So maybe
that had been our relationship, that he only spoke with me.
Okay, all right, but
As
as
the
the
representative for the district,
Is that his contract then?
as the representative for the district, he spoke with me. He was here to he worked with me hand in hand, and thus for me to provide data.
What
I'm
does
just
his
wondering-
contract say though? Does his contract say he only works with you?
I don't have a contract.
Okay, I think we need to pull Mr. Leslie's contract and find out what it says, so we can know what services that he owes the district.
And in the meantime, if, we can also smooth maybe the paths of communication, if you could also just let him know that Mrs. Sikowski is contracted by the board to do this work, and that we would really appreciate if he would also speak with her, also communicate with her.
Give him authorization.
That's fair.
So may I ask that I at least be included in the communication that he has with Mrs. Sikowski?
absolutely.
Sorry if I didn't make that clear, that you are the CFO, you are in charge of, this is just assistance. We're trying to help you
And I said,
get what you need so that we can all work this EDUP together. That no way are we like undermining your authority or your role in the process.
But the board's wishes is still to look at this contract to
See what-
ensure
The specifications
that
of
we
it.
understand
Yeah.
what it says.
Yeah,
what his
he
obligation
came
to
to
the
us,
district.
he came to us, so we just assumed.
And just so we're clear, I only reached out to him because Ayanna was unavailable and we had some EDEP questions. You had some lead time, which is understandable. So it was just that. And I had that relationship with Brian. He actually reached out to me when he heard that I was consulting. So we have had some communication, just unfortunately didn't get the answers.
Yeah, for me, it's how many other districts are under an EDUP, right? And it seems like this is a priority, and if they really if they're taking this as seriously as we're taking it, and vice versa, and I think we should take it seriously, I think it's a serious situation, then they need to act as if, it's serious, or is it this just a shell game that we're playing? Like that we're just under the Treasury's thumb for them to exert power over us whenever they want. Like is the EDAP for real? Because they're not acting like it is. It's like it's already March and we don't have you know what I mean? I know that that's great if they're extending grace, but that's more like noblesse oblige than anything else, and it makes me very uncomfortable. I think Pastor Gilbert was next, and then you, Joyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Dunphy, I appreciate what you said and the relationship that you and him have or have established or whatever, but the words that come to my mind, the urgency of now. All of this gotta get right to it. And so if you would do that for us, we're asking of you to do that, to let this individual know. And as the superintendent just said about the contract, and you don't have to go into that area, but the relationship that you have, take full advantage of that if you can, to get him to come before us. I just come right out in the open and talk like it's gotta be. Because he has a contract, he has something, he's getting paid, and it's just not gonna work, not for this board member. And that's what I'm asking of you. I know you will do your best, but of course, you can't make him show up. That's not your job. But you can do all that you can do, and if he does not show up, then we'll go to the next step. That's what we'll do. So thank you very much.
No problem. Okay.
With all that,
Yeah, and then I was just indicating that Chris was next.
with all that's been said, is there possible that we can get something in writing from the state saying that they extended it past March? You know, something in writing is always better than a third person communication. So we need something in writing that make us feel better, knowing that we have a written document.
Crystal Moon, I'll put in the request.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. So I think it's important, from my understanding of it, that not only do we have a debt, but we're running at a deficit. Is that fair to say, year to year? So any debt.
So wait, I want to clarify. We're
Go ahead.
running at a deficit. There is no debt sitting out there.
We
Okay.
have no debt.
So we don't have a debt that we're sitting there that's a bill that we need to pay. On an operating basis, on an annual basis, we spend more than we bring in.
Okay, and that spend more is where's
Millions.
right,
Mm-hmm.
and that is sitting out there.
So we
It has to be
use
sitting
our
out there
fund
to be
balance.
paid.
We use our fund balance to cover the overages. And so we're depleting our fund balance. So you see like a savings account, your fund balance is a savings account, and your revenue is your paycheck that you make. And the expenses is us living beyond our means. And so when we go live beyond our means, we have to dip into our savings. And that's what we're doing. So we have to stop dipping into our savings. And that is where the deficit comes in. So it's not a bill sitting out there waiting to be paid. Is that?
Yep,
That's
got
right.
it.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that
Good.
what you had?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments before we continue? Before we keep going, I would like to make a motion to set a date for the next Finance Committee meeting of the whole. We talked about it last week about moving forward, like that this stuff that is gonna have, we've got a deadline coming up, we have to work on it. And I know that we said that we were gonna have extra Finance Committee meetings of the whole, so I would like to make a motion to set a date for next week.
So may I ask a question before you do that? Are we gonna do something tonight that would allow me to go and perhaps work on some scenarios and then be able to bring something back for the next meeting?
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes, but
that's what we
we're
agreed
not, we're not taking any actionable.
No actions. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you give me some suggestions,
Yeah, that's
some
what we-
scenarios,
That's what we're supposed to
Yeah,
do.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
what
can
this is
take it
supposed to be
back.
about.
Yeah,
and then I
that's
can
what
get
it's
some
about.
scenarios and then try to bring it back for the next meeting is what I'm asking.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanna ask that so I can know when you set this meeting, I gotta have enough time to take it and get the data and bring it back. So I just wanna be sure that
Yes.
that's taken into consideration.
Well, okay, so the motion is on the floor. Because by discussing the motion, so it either is going to be,
It hasn't been seconded
it
yet.
has not.
No.
Okay, well, we're not
So
in
it's no
violation.
violation.
We're not in violation for discussion yet. It hasn't been.
Remember, we suspended the rules as far as.
Okay, all right, so I just wanted to,
Voting,
okay.
then that doesn't include it only includes the members. But with what Ms. Donpre is saying is that she's just giving you some clarity as to what she needs on her part. That's all.
So
We gotta take that.
we also need to
realize, I mean, we can't keep putting it off and putting it up. This is work, and I understand that you need the time, and that's taken, I mean, not taken for granted, but that's assumed. But we also need to move forward and keep the ball moving forward. So the meeting, I think that we should just have, we've talked about having meetings every week. And so I just wanted to, so that we didn't let this fall through the cracks, you know, before we move too much further.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Green, I just want to say something about this. I just want to make sure that if we set the date, that when we come back to the meeting, I have something to give to make the meeting meaningful. That's why I said that.
I think we should continue our discussion, don't worry about the date right now.
That's what I was
Based
gonna
on
say.
our, based on our decision.
Let's gauge it once we get
Yeah,
that
we're supposed to
information.
be
She may need
engaging and making.
8 days, 9 days instead of 7
Yeah.
days. You know what I'm saying? I think it's fair if we do that like that.
Thank you,
I
President.
like that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
President. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask that we go over the scenarios?
that's what
We can-
Thank you,
Well, we're
Chris.
here for-
That's exactly what we
Exactly.
got.
Exactly.
So the
Thank
motion
you,
dies.
Chris.
Excuse me, can we have Ms. Who want to go over the scenario? You want to go over the scenario?
I know we suspended something, but do you take the motion off the floor or? do
I
you-
just did.
Okay.
And
Everybody
that's
died
because we're trying to conversate.
Yes, ma'am.
It's sort of habit forming when you see him, you know, with his support or whatever. That's what it really is. So we can have it open.
So we talked about Carrie going over the
Okay.
scenarios, and then we would,
You're gonna be used to this one. Okay.
and
Can I
then we
make
would,
one point?
if we have questions, we'll.
Sister Carrie, Brother Chris, is it any particular scenario you wanted to start with?
Looks like number one's up there. on
Okay.
top of my paper.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know, but
Thank you.
This one right here.
Right here.
Okay, the one that didn't say.
Yeah.
Oh, I left mine at home. I didn't hear that one.
No, it's not in there.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it is. It's in here. It's in your book.
Oh, it's,
Okay, that's what I
Oh,
thought.
it's in your book?
oh,
It
it's.
should be.
No, I got
Thank you.
it.
Yes, it is. It's folded up. It's folded. It's in there. There it is, right there. Been a snake, you'd be dead.
Excuse me,
Okay.
You were given the scenarios last week.
Yeah.
You bring them back.
I did, yeah.
You can
So
show
I
me.
did not bring,
Okay, that's fine.
Your
I
mother
should
having,
agree.
so having a different thing there?
that's correct.
Oh, okay. I didn't
You were
realize that.
not
Sorry.
here,
I'm sorry.
they already have these.
That's right.
Do
So
we have
I
different
included it in Danielle's.
She's
So
just-
that's
Danielle
It's the
gotta
same
do it, but we have.
So I guess, so just for my clarity, I mean, we can, talk about these, they're obviously the same as last week.
Well, I got IOU. list
So
of
did you
laws
just
that
wanna refresher, or do you guys wanna talk about what your thoughts are as far as, you know, we had our little homework assignment, so. Again, the first scenario, let me get my cheat sheet out.
Right. I think there was a question about, there were two scenarios with two buildings, and they were different buildings, and there was a question about, the idea was that the buildings were interchangeable anyway, so why would we have two scenarios with two buildings if they're interchangeable?
Okay, so scenario one is just the closure of 3 buildings.
Right.
And it's generic, you know, decide which 3 they were, so these are just, you know, these aren't exact numbers, these are approximate. Scenario 2, I think, is where their question was, it was closing 3 buildings, but, doing a separate building for the early childhood program. Do you know kind of what that was like?
So what that scenario was is that we were talking about having K through 5 buildings. And then the middle school would be 6, 7, 8. And they talked about potentially having early childhood buildings, and it would be to have like a 3-4-year-old program. That's what that scenario was about.
And that wasn't, the early childhood, that building was not designated, it was just,
Correct.
it was still just a generic,
Correct.
pick your own.
Yes.
So we kind of talked about that last week, having the early childhood, in one building, which is what they proposed here.
And then like, obviously we talked about kind of what that busing situation would be if, and if that was something that you were interested in. Scenario 2 is closing of 2 buildings. Scenario 4, 4 buildings.
Wait.
Scenario 3, 2
Three.
buildings,
Yeah,
sorry.
two
I misspoke.
buildings.
Scenario 4, we're closing 4 buildings. And then scenario 5. So when we look at the scenarios that were prepared, if we looked at, again, scenario 1, which is closing 3 buildings, we ended fiscal year 31 in a $2.6 million deficit. So even closing the 3 buildings, we weren't able to exit the deficit by fiscal year 31, which would have been 10 years out from when this was drawn up. Again, these numbers have slightly changed because our fund balance was considerably higher at the end of fiscal year 21 than what this scenario projected. And I think we then kind of looked at scenario 4, which is the closing of the most buildings.
Which would go on.
But that got us to a positive in fiscal year 30 of $200,000, and then we continued to gain and build up our savings or fund balance. So again, the other thing is we talked about some of the assumptions, and Bill, let me know. I know when we did these before with Brian, they show a decrease in instruction costs because as we reduce students, we reduce teachers. So there's no increases for staff in here at all.
That's all staff, not just
Right,
teachers.
yes, all staff.
Can I ask a question?
But we're not really reducing, we're reducing teachers, but we're not really reducing in other positions, right? Because we're still gonna keep you, we're still gonna, but if the teachers, we would be reducing as we reduce staff, teachers and paras.
Teachers, paras, administrators, secretaries.
Because as you close a building, if you close a building, you're gonna reduce an administrator. Yep.
So with that being said, do we consider smarter class sizes before we talk about getting rid of teachers or parapros?
Well, that is not, that concept was really not taken into consideration when this EDF was built. If I'm not, again, I'm trying not to misspeak
We still
because
need a smaller class size.
Right.
Well, in my opinion. that's what I
your
feel.
class sizes are dictated by your contract, and I know we try to honor those. But one of the things we talked about too, as you reduce classes, or as we lose, let's say we talked about 200 students district-wide, which is what this scenario does.
Mhm.
I think it's 200 for the first year or something.
Yeah, 200 for the first year and then 150.
But the problem, right, can be, we might not necessarily, 200, you would think, oh, I can lose 8 teachers, on an average of 25, or, maybe 7 teachers or whatever. But if I lose 2 second graders at this school and 2 second graders over here and a 3rd grader here, well, that still equals 200, but it didn't see any reduction in teachers, and that's kind of built in here that way. So just to be understanding, again, we talked about, this is just an educated guess as to what we need to shoot for when we budget.
Okay.
So even with closing 4 buildings, I guess is the point I'm trying to make, we don't see any increases for wages across the board. Teachers, which we desperately know that they need, right?
Right.
Paras, we don't see that, and we're still taking us until FY30, so several years to even get out of our deficit, and that's closing 4 buildings. So I think how we left it last week was kind of to think about looking at the information that we have, knowing that we do have some funds to help improve our buildings, what buildings should we invest in, and let the community know we're going to improve and bring these special services, like maybe I know up in Brownell and Holmes, it's a real STEM thing. Do we maybe do some improvements and really capture that and go back to that STEM? What are we doing there? And I know you guys talked about some musical or some fine arts, is there those kinds of things that you want to consider? But we have to do that by reducing our footprint of school buildings. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now that we just got a copy of our pupil enrollment projection study, and we already have these scenarios, to Ms. Donpre, would us having this affect some of these scenarios? Is this more accurate?
Yes, it is.
So,
And it will change that, just as well as the fact that our foundation allowance is different. Our starting student enrollment number is different, so that would change what you see here. And so once we have information, once I have information as to what, if we're thinking about buildings, if we're thinking about positions, if we're thinking about what things are we thinking about that we want to take into consideration, that's what the information I take back. And then we put it into scenarios, and then I bring it back, and it'll be more updated, because then it'll have our approved fund balance to beginning fund balance. It'll have this year's budget in there, and it'll be based off of that budget amendment that you just approved. So that will be your starting numbers, and then so the scenarios will be completely different because it'll have that starting information.
so, because I know that I'm listening to you guys projecting decrease and decrease. However, from our perspective, we see a little increase and increase. So, if, you know, if we're looking at what I think we had an increase from when I first started. Am I correct, Mr. Jones?
Are we talking about enrollment?
Uh-huh.
No, we're at 3,079.
But let me be clear, the enrollment of the students is not the same thing as FTE.
Oh, you're saying FT, okay.
Yeah, so
gotcha,
this pupil projection is FTE.
Okay,
And that's
And what-
why we have our foundation allowances based on that,
FT stands for what?
full-time equivalent.
Full-time.
Full-time equivalent. Equivalent, oh, I'm sorry.
Would you explain what that is?
So it takes a student and determines if they have to go to special ed or have to do something else, they're not considered a full-time student. They may be a partial of a student. And so it takes into consideration our fall enrollment number, 90% of our fall enrollment, plus 10% of our spring enrollment. And then that's how they calculate what our FTE is.
Is that a state thing?
Yes, it is, Michigan.
I know that we also talked about maybe the possibility of having a new scenario with 5 buildings.
If that's what you want, yeah, I didn't know you wanted that. We can do that.
And then, I mean, I wasn't sure if that was the pleasure of.
With the closure of 5 buildings?
Correct.
Okay.
And
based
And-
upon that study, the FTE.
based on the new information, and then looking at the administration building.
Okay.
Like that's some of what we discussed last week, so I'm just bringing it forward again. So to kind of include maybe that information as possible. Now, just to let everybody know, it's not that we're necessarily going to do this or consider, these are just. Right, thank you.
Yeah.
And
So I would just want to clarify, 5 school buildings and the administration building, or
well, it
Four
says
school
buildings,
We didn't
so,
read the administration, but I think it should be.
well.
She
we
just
were-
asked for a
we were
scenario.
just looking at it. Oh, okay, all right. So that was one of the questions I had. You say buildings, and I wasn't clear whether it meant school
school
buildings
building.
or, and so the administration building is not included?
That is not in this scenario, but
Not
that
in
doesn't
these-
mean it's not up to be.
Okay,
Included.
when it says closure of 3 buildings, the possibility of an administration building and say 2 elementaries is not the thing.
No, but it can be.
Right, but it's not
In
these.
in those
Okay.
scenarios, these are all school buildings.
Okay. Okay, I want to ask this. Okay, Ms. Dunphy, say if we, just for example, because I'm with Dr. Joyce, I'm like President Green now, I'm being optimistic. I'm looking for growth in the district. I see an opportunity for us to raise our pupil participation and enrollment. So I'm thinking, and we gotta shed buildings, and that is true. And me and Miss Laura, we spoke about, 4 buildings, 3 buildings, 5 buildings. But what we haven't done is a new footprint due to COVID. Because I think what killed our district definitely in the media is the fact that our students had to be out when other districts were in school. Now, one of the issues in my mind is because our students cannot socially distance. The reason private schools never stop even when COVID was, initially when COVID came out, they went out for maybe a week or two or briefly, and they were back up during the whole time during COVID, but it's because they're automatically socially distanced, all of their students, because they have like 14 or 18 students in a classroom. I think it would behoove us as a district to stimulate that and do the social distancing and embed that in our process, because that's going to affect how many buildings we need. Because when you social distance, because some of our classes got 38, 40 students in. Well, in a private school, that's 3 classes. That's, if you got, say, 15, 18 students in a classroom, that's definitely 2 classes and a push. So then how does that affect our school building capacity? And I'm like Ms. Green, say if we did try to go to a socially distanced atmosphere, now you need more teachers because your class sizes are smaller. So we're talking about right sizing the district. When we get to talking about closing buildings, we have to include the pupil participation in that building. And that includes your teachers. They got to have the space. So if you got 16, 18 kids, then the teacher got to be socially distanced. So now you got 19 people that need 6 feet, a piece to be spread it out socially, which can cut back on our sneeze guard situation. We won't need the sneeze guards if the kids are socially distanced. So I think we need to add that some kind of way in our financial, in the looking at what buildings we keep.
Just want to say, I appreciate that, and I understand where you're coming from, but financially, so you almost be doubling your teachers. So you would be, and we probably spend 13 million. What are we spending on instruction? I guess you would be doubling that, and we just would never. $14 million. 20 is your 16? Okay, I was thinking 13 million. I mean, you would be doubling that, and so you may be keeping open more buildings, and if that wasn't a factor, I'm not saying it shouldn't be a factor, and I completely understand. I don't want to say that finances are more important than health at all, but I just want to understand how large of what you're saying is. You would be adding 13 million just on the downside to every budget going forward to cut those classes in half. And we already are in a deficit right now with 9 million. So now we would be in the whole 22 million, and it would continue on. So I'm not sure that, I just don't know that I understand that is something we want, but I just don't know that we can act. It's kind of like we talked about, we'd love to have a new building, but where does that come from? Mm-hmm. What are the resources? So, I don't know, your exact answer to how we continue to do that. Hopefully, praying that, COVID, people are vaccinated, and we can continue to wear masks and those kinds of things, and that slows down the spread. But I just don't know how we can financially afford to do that.
Okay, I understand that. Let me ask Mr. Kevin this. What did we lose as it pertains to our students being closed during COVID? Because I understand what Mr. Kelsey says, but I also understand that we could have possibly lost students because their parents needed to go to work and they couldn't send their kid to school, and that may have forced some parents to make some decisions they didn't want to make. And I'm not saying we should agree to do this, but I'm saying if we're going to look at scenarios, that scenario should definitely be included so we can know. And if we're talking about building new buildings, I think that would be important as to the setup of how we do those buildings. What would the square footage be? If we have X amount of classrooms, should that be built in? Because we're talking about building new buildings. You don't want to build new buildings and you got the same old problems from your old buildings of yesterday. You're on top of each other. Classes are overpopulated. If we gonna run, let's say, if we're gonna have 40 students in the class, which I don't see how we can possibly, how one teacher can educate 40 students. And I don't understand it, but I'm not an educator. But my question then becomes, what size should our classrooms be then? We need larger classrooms. We shouldn't build no new building and the kids can't socially distance. Okay, I understand if they can't do that in our old buildings, but if we're talking about spending money moving forward, and COVID is gonna be with us, and ain't no telling what other pandemic is gonna come up, wouldn't we consider that when we talk about building new spaces for our students? Because we talking about all this technology, but if they get sick, it don't matter how great the technology is. If they always at the house, then that's not helping us as a district. So if we are going to not socially distance in our old buildings, I think we need to look at the scenarios for socially distancing in our new buildings. We have to consider safety.
Right, but right now, I think we're just focused on our old buildings. I think that was where we landed last week is what do we do with what we have? And then the board will decide whether it be in a partnership or through a bond or some, some other, because we know we can't use ESSER dollars, as Deanna said last week, to build a new building.
Right.
We can help to rehab what we have. So where do we go? How do we build our best? And then once we get through that conversation, I think we continue on the path that you're on as far as like how do we, what the next one looks like.
Right.
So I think I'm trying to clear up some things. So we know for sure, whether with Alciphon or even whatever, that we need smaller classroom. That's given, right? Because of the behavior of the children in Flint.
And that too.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And so if we didn't, for instance, we didn't have the COVID, we know that one teacher is difficult to manage a classroom, even with the required capacity, due to the behavior issue. So I was just looking at, somebody kind of piggyback on what she said. Do we look at that in a scenario, or we look at this in a different way?
I would say you have to look at that in a decision that the board, like you
Okay.
said on the ladder, if you're gonna build,
Okay.
you look into building that way. But as it pertains to these scenarios, we have to look at how we can,
And you taking
Downside
all
as far as
13
building.
schools, and you taking, these scenarios including just the schools we have open.
Schools
Do
and
it
rest
with-
of them, yes.
so you're taking buildings and you're closing them and you're saying, I'm gonna take these scholars and we're gonna put them in another. So you're not really making small class sizes.
Right, we making them big.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
Because we have just like many districts, this is so very common, right? As the declining enrollment, we have buildings that are not full, we have empty classrooms.
A lot of them, a ton of
We have a lot of
Yes.
space, so that
Yeah.
utilization study should be in here, and so we obviously we want to look at if we were to close this building, where do we think the children will go? You'd have to look at how you're going to redraw your lines for busing,
Absolutely.
and then can whatever school is left to support them, can they support that classroom? We're still, I'm sure the administration is still going to work very hard to honor contract numbers for classroom sizes.
What's the classroom size? It's just like, what's the country?
So it could be, kindergarten is 25, that one I know for a fact.
That one I knew too.
That one I know, I don't have the top of my mind for the classroom sizes.
I'm trying to remember.
That's
I
okay.
think third grade is
28,
about 30,
27.
third grade was 30, because we had 2 over when I was teaching.
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
think
don't know if
30
that's
might be a
30.
smidge
I'll write that
high.
down.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Just like
30.
that's what
It's 28.
That's what I
We
would
can
think
find that.
too.
Yeah, I
28.
think it's 28.
I do know you go up usually in third grade. Your
Mhm.
K1, 2s are generally probably around 25, 26, and then they go up a little bit. We're not trying to stuff anybody or make it, we'd like the kids to learn. So
Right.
we're not trying to put too many in there so that
Third
we
grade might have been 28, because I remember having
2 over and you're at 30.
that was the tricky part, because I had 2 over.
Yeah.
We had to create another third grade almost for those extra 2 or 3 over. So
Yeah.
that was the tricky
That's what I was
part.
thinking about. How many third grade classrooms, if we're gonna downsize and close buildings? If you used to having one third grade classroom, now I'm sure you need 2 or 3, because you combined it. I mean, you got to, you're
Right.
talking about combined.
So you're still gonna look at, that's something that, and again, it's something a little bit easier to do when you have less buildings, like we were kind of talking about. You might have 40 third grades in this school, so then you split them and you have 2 20s. But this poor teacher over here, she's got 28. Well, she's got 8 more kids, where if you were all in one building, then you could take those 8 kids and everybody end up with, 22 and a half kids.
Well, that adds to the
But you-
additional teacher situation though.
But that's just, in that scenario that she just presented, you still have 3 teachers.
You still would have
Right,
3 teachers.
so we don't actually go down and decide for a teacher, but we don't have that building to maintain
Right.
it.
Right, yep, see, that's what I'm talking about right here.
And that's-
But it just depends on the enrollment of the students that we have. Once we go down and we figure out where are our kids, what grades are they in, what schools are they in, what neighborhoods are they in, then you get to see, okay, at this building now we need 3 third-grade classes as opposed to 2.
And we don't have a demographic chart yet for those kids that are.
So that was we did have a we've had a couple meetings where I provided a whole lot of data for you guys that we got from Plant Moran Crescent.
Yeah, I have.
And one of those had a heat map where it showed where the kids were in the area. And in the heat map, it showed where all the kids were by the different. And I don't think
I saw that heat map,
was in
updated one, it was, we needed an update.
That don't mean you ain't give it to us, that just means. Right. Yeah, we know some people here don't like to read.
When you get a regular paper for every board meeting, we can certainly.
I remember
understand
having
how you
that
make
discussion that we, before Mr. Walker left, we was talking about demographics, where these kids are at since the 2021 census count. And then that's gonna give us a good idea of how we're gonna structure our school. But right now, we're just doing scenario 4, but we are gonna need that data in our decision-making process when we get to start to saying, okay, we know if we're gonna do 4 schools.
Right.
But we still would have to have that data when we start making that decision, what 4 would be,
I think
based on enrollment, where the kids are
Right.
located at.
one of the most important things I think, just for families, that you want to look at is we have 10,000 children in the area that could come to our schools.
Right.
We kind of
Yeah.
talked about that. I think we need to focus more on what buildings does it make sense to keep open,
Mhm.
improve those, and then let administration say, okay, these are the lines for school A, and these are the lines for school B, and so on and so forth. Let them do that piece. I think if you dive in too far into this, it could get very complicated.
Yeah.
I think to maybe just look like how we left it was, how can we build this to best serve the students that we have, and hope that we do attract some more students. As you see, we're upgrading and doing these different things. We have great teachers, now we need to have them be excited about the buildings.
I didn't want anything, I just wanted to make sure he had enough.
Yes.
So I want to agree with your point. The fewer buildings, the easier it is to manage class size. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. How many students, it may have been in here somewhere, thought I saw it. How many students can each of our schools hold? And I'm thinking.
So on the facility utilization, so there's a tab, I don't know if your books look like mine. There's a tab that is under the facility utilization.
Yes, they're all the same.
They're all the same, yeah.
Okay.
Just show up a
So
little
mine
page.
It may be a different color tab.
It says facility utilization review, under facility utilization review. If you turn, you open up that section, that second page, it shows you the capacity,
Yep.
the enrollment as of fall 21, and the capacity of the building, and it's showing you what's the excess in each building.
Oh, okay, yeah, right here.
Okay.
It's in your notebook.
So,
Okay, you just gotta find.
Okay,
so we looked at, can everything we want fit into 3 buildings? 1 high school, 1 middle school.
What'd you say now?
One elementary,
He's asking if everything can be put into 3 buildings, 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 1 elementary.
you may have to utilize a larger school.
Yeah, sure,
Like-
Northwestern,
So
South.
what
elementary.
elementary would be what, K-5?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it in your scenario, is that K-5?
K5 or K6. But K-
So it is, we got K6s, so it's a lot harder to.
We have K6 buildings.
We have
Okay.
K6.
So if we have K6.
You're in this one.
Or not.
There's that other page.
Alright, so we have K6 buildings.
You also have 6, 8
6 to 8, yeah.
at middle school.
Yeah.
But that's from one school though, that's only Ronell's sixth graders. That's
I think
nobody
it's
else's sixth graders.
Vernell's 6th graders now,
Only
right?
Ronell's
Yeah.
sixth graders are in home.
And
But
home is,
everybody else is K through 6.
oh, okay.
Let me say this, for consideration, since we're talking about the scenarios, I did look at a few, scenarios, and I don't know how this will play out, but since we given this, did I cut somebody?
No, I just trying to hear the seat over here.
Oh,
I was
okay,
looking
okay,
for a mask. Okay.
okay,
Say that again,
that should have a mask.
Is that the front door?
Okay,
Yeah, front door.
what I looked at when we talked about building closing scenarios, I'm gonna give Ms. Donpray some of my scenarios, and then everybody.
Okay.
One of my scenarios was to combine the Brownell Homes campus. Say if we put a new building there, we could elementary, but you could make it big enough since that campus is big and it's 2 buildings. Make one building and put the little kids on one side of the building. Have it where you can shut that down to the other side.
Are you talking about with the current buildings we have, or are you talking
No, I'm talking about with combining these 2 schools.
within one building?
Yes, in one.
Into what, which
Into a
building?
new building or
A
into?
new building, but at this point, we might have enough pupils to put them in one building. I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so what I'm sorry, Miss, I'm struggling with being able to do a scenario for a new building.
Okay,
So
so
I have
here
to
we
be able
go.
to do what, how we're doing with the
Okay,
buildings
so-
we have.
So here we go. Here we go. My option would be to move all the students from Durant Terry Mott to Dora Ryder, even just for a renovation. I'm not saying even get rid of Dora Ryder, but I'm looking at concession steps because you can't renovate all of them at one time.
That's right.
You're gonna have to put some students over here while you work over here. So I'm looking at, these are the scenarios I came up with. I'm looking at taking the students from Durant Terry Mott, putting them in Dora Ryder.
Not enough space.
In that scenario, is Dora Ryder closed?
No.
Are there any students in Dora Ryder?
Not now,
You
but
would
once
have,
we renovate it. And that could be wrong, this is just this might not even work.
okay, so you
Y'all
have,
let me know.
all right, scenario.
And then I'm saying close Southwestern and definitely close Pierce. We only got 96 students at Pierce, that's a no-brainer.
So close Southwestern, Pierce.
And then I'm thinking between, I don't know how that would work, because Freeman have a lot of students and so do, hey, Nethercutt, my friend.
Yeah, Nethercutt and Freeman.
See, both of those schools,
Where's Pierce? Is that on
let
the
me
south
look
side?
them up.
Nethercutt just has 202 students.
And then how many?
So that's pretty low also to run a whole building.
Okay, hold on, and then how many is,
Then
okay,
they
Pierce,
just-
we know Pierce needs, who did I say,
Okay.
Freeman, how many in Freeman? What am I going
Let's
to
say 110.
Okay, so combine those two.
Then why is mine different than what they're looking
What are y'all?
What are you
looking at?
looking at?
She's in the facility assessment.
Yeah, she's in the facility.
So I'm looking at, say we close,
So
we got
this is as of.
we just closed Pierce, Pierce ain't got the 96 students.
Enrollment by grade.
Yeah,
Because that's what Dina
this
just
is,
gave
this
me.
is more up to date.
This
They
one,
got 110.
Which one is up to date? The one that Carol looking at? Or the
No,
one?
this one here. So we're paying.
Miss Vector. Just the date.
Oh, that's a different page.
Yeah.
With tab,
Hold on, meeting together. We need to call the meeting to order.
Okay. I know we suspended the rules, but not that much. Okay, so just one at a time. What we're just trying to get on the same page, we're looking at the updated pupil enrollment projections for 2022 through 26.
Clear text.
New,
should look like this.
Y'all gotta give me all this stuff and think I'm gonna be able to.
It's right behind your assessment.
Mine is green, too.
Yeah, right behind you like this. You see your first page?
Uh-huh.
This is the next half over.
How to put this in here.
Oh, this-
wait till,
Flip over.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Oh, okay, here we go.
oh, wait,
This is it.
okay, does everyone have the page? Yep, right.
Okay, here we go. Grand total.
Okay, so everyone has the
Green is not
page.
there. This green is not.
Pupil enrollment projections, right?
This should look
That's
just like
correct.
this.
Okay, yeah,
Oh, there we go.
Like that, yeah.
okay, so here we go.
Like a SRA
So can I
test.
just I just want to come back to tell you a question that you had.
Mhm.
Kindergarten through 5th grade has an average
of, let's say 300, so that would be like 1,800 kids in a building. So I think having one elementary, and that's just K-5, I think that would be a negative.
Yeah,
That's
that's not
way
good.
too many
Sure.
for little kids.
Yeah.
So just to answer that
Yeah,
one
and having
question.
that number, I agree.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm over here going, okay, that looks about an average of 300. So we're just gonna throw a nice round number at it. So over half of your students are K-5. So we're definitely gonna wanna split those up. So that's super good information to have, but then that obviously you're 6 through 12, you have about roughly 1,200 because we have roughly 3,000 kids, right?
Right.
So so that next 6 through 12 have considerably less. So those folks could maybe go in one building, but then you gotta think educationally, is that what we want to do, for instruction wise? But we definitely need more than one elementary. I think we
Yeah.
would agree.
Yeah.
18 is way too many. We don't really have a building unless we put them in a high school. Then you got to retrofit out the bathrooms and all that. It's not what you want to do. You don't want to do that.
The
But
best scenario for each one, if you had 1,800, what would be the best scenario? Your
Well,
recommendation.
What would you think you would
Number of
want? I would
buildings.
think. I would
Number
think
of buildings, number of
okay,
buildings.
I would think 4 elementaries. That would be keeping them around
How many you said, Carrie?
4 elementaries.
Okay.
I would defer to you. That's an instructional thing, really. And we kind of talked about that quadrant, and I know when Derek, Mr. Lopez was here, we kind of talked about that quadrant. That does kind of make sense with me
A lot of schools.
because people don't like to cross a barrier, cross an
Right.
expressway.
That's right.
So you kind of like have your 4 elementaries in your quadrants. And I don't know if that truly makes sense,
It does.
but I do think that it's something that I do think has a lot of fact behind it that people don't like to cross an expressway. You got 475 going down the middle. You got 69 kind of at the lower half. Yes. Okay.
And with what Ms. Carey said, also with students, you do well in a familiar surround.
Sure.
When you take a child and ship them way across town, they got to learn the teachers. They don't know no staff. They don't know no students.
Right.
They out of their element. Now you bringing on emotional situations that are unnecessary, which affects performance, whether we want to accept that or not. When you have a student in their element around familiar surroundings, the kids that they play with in their neighborhood, they know Miss Jones, she the lunch lady, that's their friend mother. And they know she gonna tell their mama if they cutting up.
Well, Mrs. Edwards was talking about.
The feeling of comfort. Now I don't have to worry about dealing with all that stuff and I can concentrate on scholastics. We are failing to give, I think in my mind, our students that comfort that they need to excel. Okay? We're creating a group of problems for young people that don't have to necessarily be there. What's every community school? It should be in my community.
I was just about to say.
Right.
that
Community.
This
Yeah.
is the true definition of a community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're getting away from that. When we had community schools, our district was massive. Let's just look at the history. When schools are in your community, parents supported the public school system. The school that was in their community, my mama was a lunch lady. She didn't have to be, but because it was community and it was a need and she knew the students in the neighborhood and the parents, she felt comfortable, even as an adult, stepping out of that comfort zone to give that extra time. Like this lady, she's from Barnell. Anything going on over there at Barnell and in her district, she owned that. That is what we need, and that is what is missing from our community schools. We are leaving out the community. So that's my point to that. And I'm not
And if
gonna
you
say-
remember too, when we had so many community schools, it also had 40,000 students.
Yes.
We only have at
Yes.
max, now, we went from 40 in the city of Flint to 10. And, we're only capturing a small piece of that, and you have to think too, because we didn't adjust as fast as we should have, we've let people go, okay, do you want to live in the rundown house or do you want to go to the nice new pretty house? And right, so they got these new charters came in and attracted people because we're not keeping pace. We have excellent staff here. We talked about this, right? We have excellent paras, we have excellent teachers, But if we don't have a safe, clean environment,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta meet those hierarchy of needs, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do here today, nothing else,
Right.
nothing else.
So I think, I don't think there's, like, we're all in agreement that 4 elementaries is probably, well, not agreement, I'm not saying, hang on. That 4 is something that sounds good, we're thinking about that, and we're not going down to 1.
No, I agree.
So 4 would be,
3 to 4.
yeah, 3 to 4,
Okay.
okay, and then, hang on, I think Chris is
Yeah,
next.
so,
and
yeah,
then-
so the example I gave as 1 was only an example to begin the discussion. So if we're at 3, if we're at 4.
You asked if it was possible, and
Yeah,
the answer
yeah.
was probably
Basically,
not.
no, because there's too
Okay.
many students, I didn't know the number. So if we're gonna go to 3 or 4 schools, why don't we talk about where would they be? Given either the buildings we have, or maybe we need a building somewhere else, because that's where the population is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, when I look at Durant, Tremont, and Dole Ryder, you know, they're like a mile and a half away, maybe.
Yeah.
And some areas around there are no students. I mean, I don't mean no students, but very few. I mean, but
And then
No,
I
well,
can listen,
you know,
because I know-
Brother Chris kind of touched on it a little bit. The thing that I look at more so is that the community school model, if you're going to stop the bleeding, try to work toward getting that deficit together, it's gonna, you may not have schools in every community. And
absolutely true.
And that's some heavy lifting. And in my mind, the quadrants, maybe in the center of somewhere, and then over here. And if you look at the demographics, if you look at
Oh, I'm sorry.
where they are, where our students are and the scholars are, I do go along with what Sister Carolyn said about them going out of their area of teachers and those that come to help, like Mrs. Edward, and thank you so kindly, but where I get off the train on that is that how you going to be able to stop the bleeding and get that savings, get that, how you going to do them both at the same time if you want to put schools in 4, 5, or 6 communities when you can't, the revenue, the debt, I mean, it's not going to allow you to do it.
Well, currently we have 7 elementaries,
We have 8.
8 elementaries.
8 elementary.
So we know if we close 4 based on the current scenarios, we can get at a deficit. I still think we have a little bit more work to do, but you could leave everything else and shave the 4 elementaries. I don't know that that's the right thing to do because we haven't even talked about 6 through 12. I know there's always been discussion about this building and, you know, what do we do with that? And if you keep it, you keep it. But again, we have to truly think about how does every dollar, having this building and running it, how does that help our children in a classroom? And how does that benefit our teachers? So I think we can get to, obviously up in, what would that be, the northeastern, we only have 1 school there now, right? Which is Potter. So that one's easy. That one, there's no, you could close it, but then you don't have anything in that area. Maybe that's fine, and maybe you think it's better to have something else. You know, what do you have in the northern west? You have Brunel and you have Holmes. So you got to keep something there. We talked about that too. You have to do something, put some improvements in that. Is it that building? Is it Northwestern? Do we move them both? Everybody to Northwestern? What is that? I think your more questions come down to when you get to the center of the city and south.
Right.
Because like you said, you have Durant, Tremont, you have Doyle Ryder very close. You have Eisenhower and Freeman, I think are very close. You have ALA kind of hanging out there.
Eisenhower and Nethercutt is closer.
Eisenhower, Eisenhower, Nethercutt, yeah. So then I think that's where you kind of look at where Pierce, which I don't know, I think we all kind of understand where Pierce is.
Right.
I think kind of think about that too, Pierce.
was a real strong, I know when I was sitting in Ms. Dunpre's seat and you were on the board, to keep Pierce open. But as we've seen, the community is not supporting that.
No.
If they were, they would be sending their children there.
Yep, there you go.
So
That's right,
we try, right? And it's unfortunately, we need to put those resources into buildings where our students are attending. And, so forth.
Sorry, Joyce was waiting to speak.
Mr. Donald, I guess when we were talking about moving kids and shifting kids, we have to keep in mind, handicap accessible, and special needs. And what's one of the things, you know, is that it had the ramps where they can go. You don't want a kid just depending on the elevator, when the elevator can
Go
break
out.
down or what else. But that's one thing we do have to think about is that those ramps. That's why when I was teaching that, I kind of like that. So we have to look at making these decisions for our special needs. I just want to share that with special needs, in my opinion, we need smaller classrooms. It works better when smaller classroom. And on a good day, one kid can take all of my time, which it has. And almost like if small classroom or two people in a classroom, it's impossible as a teacher with the behavior and the issue our children are facing to have one teacher in a classroom where the behavior and you got special needs. And it's unfair for one teacher have to deal with the special behavior issue of our children. So I don't see how we can even run a school. And we have to keep in mind, Flint is unique. We can't even make a decision based on what somebody else has. We are unique. Whether they want to admit this or not, our kids been traumatized and poisoned. And that behavior that I have experienced in this classroom, that's why I ran and sat on this seat, because when nobody listened to me. The experience that I see in this classroom is not the typical behavior of African American children. There's something else, has nothing to do with being poor, being having a mother with, fatherless or whatever. It's something is going on in those children's behavior. Their attention span is about 15 minutes. I can get 15 minutes out you. I've had a great day. So we have to look at this whole structure when we're talking about scenario 4. And this is what I've been writing down all weekend. Building better Flint Community School. Building them back better. Building back Flint Community School better. We got to do better than what we have been doing. Build back better. Let's build these schools back better. You're going to find out we got more special needs issue with kids in our district, and we need to start looking at meta labs and different types of programs. Everybody's not going to college. We got to embrace the idea. Special needs does not mean that you cannot fit in society. So when we're talking about closing school and we're talking about moving door rider kids with Durant with door rider, that's something to think about because that's a special needs school.
So can I just
Go ahead, but I know we're getting away from what you're saying, but we do need to get back to. But I just want to put that on for the record and put that in our thinking.
Danielle and
I just want to say that on the building capacity
Right.
form, it tells you the capacity of each building. Tell you how many
Yeah.
kids can be held in a building. So that should be able to aid in determining which buildings that you may choose to go.
Right.
Hey, I'm sorry, what that consists of special need, like, we know that capacity is a little different. So if there's a report saying that, I got 2 or 3 kids that might be in a wheelchair, and I got some other issues, does that report give any clues of how the capacity of special need in the classroom?
So in this report, it talks about special education support rooms, and it says which building has how many. And so it talks about what's dedicated to that. And so what you can determine if you say, okay, this building can can accommodate this many students, and we will need so many classrooms for each one of these buildings, then you can determine, okay, once we put the kids in these buildings and we determine how many classrooms are available, do we have extra classrooms where we can say now we can make these special ed classrooms a little bit smaller? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we do it, yeah.
Fine, Carol, you were next,
Okay,
and
I
then
think-
Danielle and class.
Now, we got 30, now we, what, 11 buildings? I thought we had 13 buildings. We got 13 buildings? Or
11, I think it's 11.
11 school buildings.
Okay.
That's open.
So this is what and I know y'all done heard me come up with it every time too. So 4 elementary, that's 4 schools, 2 junior highs, that's 6, and 2 high schools, that's 8.
2 junior high,
2 junior highs and 2 high schools, that's 8 buildings.
that's what we've been talking about.
Sell off the buildings that we've been holding that we were supposed to sell last year, but for whatever reason didn't sell. Because we still carrying the debt
Yeah,
and the financial responsibility of that. And we gotta, when we're doing our EDAP, we gotta keep that in mind because that is cost saving to get rid of them old bills.
Say your numbers again, your building, say that again.
If you got 4 elementary, you got 2 junior highs, and you got 2 high schools, that's only 8 buildings, which is fair to each side of town. Okay, nobody's left out of the community school system. Okay.
So that's only closing 3 buildings.
That's right.
Okay, that's closing 3 buildings, but we didn't look at the possibility that if we off them other buildings, go on and get what we're saving them for.
Yeah.
Off some of them buildings.
Right, that would be a nice influx of cash, kind of as the ESSER funds have been, but you're still running a $7 million deficit.
And well, I understand that.
No, and I appreciate your
Rome ain't gonna be
we're
built in a
rolling
day
to-
now.
yep,
Rome ain't gonna be built in a day. And if we did it like that, that would give us, because we can't overlook the possibility of growth.
thank you.
That's where we
That's what
make
it is.
our money.
Why don't
Housing students, not going down where we can't house no students, but being at capacity to receive students and give out a quality education in a decent facility. If we stick to that, we might not have to close 25 buildings because we got something to offer up. We are on a decline because of the shape we in.
Right.
Now, if we get that turned around, we can get some students and fill up 8 buildings and maybe get enough students to fill up 10 buildings. I just don't, we should do the deficit elimination. We should off the extra buildings. We should look at our employee capacity, but we should not count ourselves out of giving ourselves the opportunity for growth. That is where we make our money. If we don't have a chance for growth, even if how can we be a district? Because we have to take everybody, right? Because we're in public schools.
Right.
Now, when you cut yourself too short, and folks get to coming and you can't take them, that's a litigation, right? Or somewhere we just can't take them. We have capacity, but either way, it's not good for the district. Either you in litigation or you looking bad because you're a public school and can't even receive students. Because when we was on the downside with all this money, we counted ourselves out the game. Versus knowing that when you renovate these schools and make them nice and beautiful, I'm gonna say it again. We get some students from Beecher. We get some students from Hamady, and we get some students from Carmen, and we get some students from Mount Moore. If we do the work, if we give up what we got to give up, these schools can sustain themselves if we plan for survival. Plan to win. Let's not plan to lose. You know. Go ahead, Mrs. Kelsey.
Real quick, I should have mentioned this last week and reiterated today. Our EDAP does have to show us getting out of a deficit. Okay, so they are not going to support an increase in students because for the last 20 years, we've seen a decrease. We have not ever seen an increase.
Last year we did, didn't we?
But only because of the super blend.
Well, whatever
not
is
in,
good.
well, no,
That's not.
but that's not in real head count. If we
Oh,
talk
okay,
head count,
okay.
yeah, that's.
Quit saying Miss Don Pray before I get too excited.
Yeah, no,
She know it. She know
that was an anomaly. We all enjoyed that last year.
She know I get
But so we have to keep those two things in mind when we
excited. Okay.
give this EDAP. We don't want it to be. We want it to mean something,
Right.
and
Right.
we need to follow those trends. We still have buildings. We will still have. We could hold 4,200 students right now in our capacity. So, is what this is saying, if I'm reading
Okay.
that correct.
Yeah.
We were going to close some buildings, but in reality, first of all, not only, students leave, but they could come back, but
birth rates are way down, right? Like I said, we started with 40,000 40 years ago. Now we're only at 10,000 because, you know, there's people who are having a lot less kids and yada, yada. They moved out of Michigan for whatever reason. So we just want to, we will still have, we're not going to go through next year and close out, you know, whatever you end up doing with the closed buildings, they're still going to have that ability to do something with them. But we do need to project, we do need to project something that is
Right.
reasonable and attainable so that we can check it.
And with that birth rate thing, I'm glad you said that, because that's so sad for the other districts. There ain't nobody having no babies, because we couldn't take their kids. Now, what they gonna do?
Danielle.
I like the 4 elementary idea with the 2 middle schools and the 2 high schools. I really like that. And I'm thinking about the closeness of DTM and Door Rider. So I worked at DTM, and we have the biggest population in students, and we definitely have the biggest special needs. So that building to me is one that, because it's set up for occupational therapy, physical therapy, and all the pool.
And then they had the pool.
So that's one in my mind that we need to keep.
Yeah.
So it as well.
Would it be a junior high?
I don't think so. But to me, that means Door Rider would have to go. That's how I'm thinking. So what comes to mind is we're putting all this money into Door Rider right now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to figure this out quick, because we're putting money in maybe into a building like we did Northern with the gym, like we did Northwestern with the track. Let's go. Let's move. You know what I'm saying? We got to get this done, because we can't afford to be throwing money into something we're not going to sustain.
I believe, I just want to make note that general fund is paying for Door Rider. That's
Right. That's a huge point of it right there, Ms. Napa. We can't do that. And we've done that over the years. Let's not do that no more.
Now,
Right? That's it for me.
that adds to the deficit, is that right?
Yes, they do. That's why I want to keep taking money out of general
See, I
fund.
can count my wife's money. I know.
But we don't pay for the
That's
roof.
it for me.
Okay, so we don't spend that money.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so
we got to keep going with it.
Absolutely.
we're kind of moving a little bit. But as far as what's in the buildings, special ed, what's in the handicap access,
Yeah.
You should go take a,
You're gonna have to go.
have to walk
Yeah.
through them.
I think that would help you.
And that'll help you.
no, but what I'm saying, whatever building we build, whatever building we rehab, it will be handicap accessible. It will have ramps, it will be whatever it needs to be. And I think we need to start talking more about buildings and what we will close. It sounds like there's a consensus.
That was part of what we will close conversation to me, because as we close, I'm just thinking we might should consider keeping that open because of the reasons I just said.
Yeah.
Right, and that's our positive, right? We're doing this is our message. So during do you, like, no other schools, including the ISD, has what you have there, right? So that's where you put it in. That's where you say, you scream from the rooftops why this is a better district and this is our school.
Exactly.
And we don't talk about that maybe we have to close X, Y, or Z. We talk about what we are doing.
Yeah,
and
You're right about that.
schools don't have pools, and
That's
they
right.
certainly
When
don't
driving
have
through.
special education equipped pools
Oh,
and,
you know
and
they
the
don't.
services. I mean, I've been in that school. It's been a long time.
Yes, I
I do,
worked there.
but it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
So then you scream that stuff, you rehab it, you get it going. So there's that one. So then we need to do that with 3 other elementaries, and then figure out where you're putting those 6th and 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we need to keep Door Rider as a school for students with special needs to cater strictly to them?
No, that's Durant Turner.
Oh, okay, because I have a little cousin that has some needs, and he's over there. His mother is happy with it because he's getting all his IPs and stuff. And I think with us being a district with so many kids with challenges, we, like she said, we have to take what we have that other districts don't have, and we got to utilize that for our game.
Right.
And y'all gonna get mad at me when I say that. I'm gonna say it again now. Just like Northwestern, we got a driver's training range over there. Do you know how big that is? We laughing because see, we drive.
No, I ain't laughing.
But for a kid that can't wait to get behind the wheel,
Well, I can wait for him to get behind.
but for a junior or a sophomore that can't wait to get behind the wheel,
Parents can't afford to pay for
Yeah,
that's which is most of our students. Okay, which is most of our students, to have that written in your curriculum, like it used to be, is a big deal. And like I said, we got a new track at Northwestern and all of that. So we got to consider that. And it's a pool over there. So when you get those kids from Durant Terry Mott, they go to junior high with their special needs. Guess what? Northwestern can take them students because they have a pool, they have space.
Okay, it's,
They don't?
it's,
Okay.
Joyce's, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No more pools, you get one.
She said you get one.
You know, as a board members, and those that have, Carolyn, and those that have worked in the, school.
Am I gonna have to
None of them
separate
have
you
their
two,
break.
like,
Okay.
see the new seating
Go ahead,
chart?
you guys. When you look at the board member that has worked in the school and been in the school and kind of understand what we're talking about, and so you got two people that know. I know Dorada and I know Durant. I worked 2 or 3 years over there, and I was at Dorada. Dorada is a striving school, and it's a good school. Because the people in that community likes that school. Once we put those walls up and remodel that school, keep in mind, they built a new subdivision over there. They're constantly building over there. You got Lear over there. We got younger we got more young, don't get this twisted. We got more younger moms in that district. They're taking their kids somewhere else. They're just waiting on us to do door writing. And once they do door writer, we might can't even take all of them, because that's what that district is waiting on. They always loved the writer. It was just those rooms. And you know that Mr. Jones' kids go there. The writer is set up beautiful. I love going to the writer. Even got a nicer cafeteria than most of them. So the writer just needed a little remodel. You got a lot of young parents over there. You got the Lears over there. And then if we do something with Durant, we will be in heaven if we did something with that.
So that's 2 schools. Are we saying that you got DTM and Dora, right? Are those 2 schools that you want to keep?
I think those 2 schools that I would like, we just having discussions that I think the board and we should, go ahead.
Because we got to get to
some
type of scenario where we.
Okay, can we make a scenario so we can?
Wait, so if you were to look at, again, however it is that so if DTM and Joy Rider, again, this is your community, you need, then, are let's talk, we talked about Patter, is that like a for sure stay open, or is that potential one that we would close?
The student population is large over there.
And that's a tax-based area,
right?
so,
Correct, and that building it's a pretty small building apparently. It only holds about 220 Patter, and you have about 213 over there. So I think it's a pretty full building. So you're
what the
utilizing
capacity is over there?
220. You're at 97%.
Okay.
So
It's on the west
I
side.
would think that's on your upper east, your northeast.
We gotta keep that.
Round about April.
Is it like Southie,
I got a
April,
question.
up there?
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what it is.
So then if you look, I would assume Pierce would be one. Are we thinking about closing?
Yeah. No, I got a question. Whenever it's my turn.
Okay. So then in the northern area, we have Brownell and we have Northwestern, which I know is not a school. I don't think we want to use it for elementary. So we have Brownell and what's the one next to it? Oh, Holmes. But I don't know if do we keep that as the elementary and then Holmes? How's that working out? Is the community like that as the middle school? How's that?
Well, keep in mind, when I was teaching over there at Holmes in special ed, when they decided to take Holmes and take those, they told the community said, if you have to move my kid from over here at Holmes, then we're gonna go somewhere else. So keeping in mind, Holmes already have a kindergarten section, the orange side on Holmes. Holmes already set up
Early childhood.
early childhood.
Mhm.
It's like, and it works well, with early childhood and elementary together. I don't like seeing early childhood with middle school.
Mhm.
I didn't never like that. But Holmes is really set up pretty good, you know, because it goes by color code room. You got the orange room for the kindergarten. It was very well structured. And the kindergarten gets to walk around and visit your elementary classroom. So if you keep those kids coming from kindergarten to first, second, and third grade, you have set up a really nice,
So please bear in mind that Holmes is bigger than Brownell. So
Mhm.
Holmes
That was
has a
in
larger
middle school.
capacity.
uh-huh.
So if you're going to use it as an elementary school, you have a large capacity.
And we should.
With the early childhood skill.
If you have so right now what we're talking about is that Holmes is set up to house, it can take 594 students.
Okay,
And right now it has 392 with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
okay.
So if
With the
you put in
elementary.
kindergarten through 6th grade, it can handle it because of the size of the building. So if you wanted to take the kids from Brownell, this is just a suggestion, it's not from
You know, we have talked about
to move them into homes, you have the capacity for all the kids from Brownell to go into homes and keep the 6th graders there.
Does that include early childhood? The 392?
It says 6 through 8.
Yeah, so then.
So
you have to-
they know the building, so we told them, they walked the building to see which classrooms are.
So, Ms. Dunn,
So we had to
what,
take that into consideration.
what will,
Go
ahead.
Yeah, but Danielle was in here, they don't
I'm
have.
talking, okay, go ahead, Danielle.
I got a question. So our biggest special needs population is elementary, correct? Is that fair to
What's
say?
your biggest population altogether?
Right, but special
So,
needs population. What type
I
of?
would,
I don't
would you
know.
know that off the top?
Okay, well, I guess I don't really have to know the answer to that, but my reason for asking that is because if we keep DTM because of the equipment, I mean, it's all kind of stuff in there.
Sure.
So to me, I just think that just makes sense and make, Door Rider, a middle school, junior high. How many does Door Rider, what's the capacity for Door Rider?
That's a good idea. So Doyle
That's a good
Ryder
idea.
holds 374.
I think that would be a great middle school, the way it's set
That's
up.
what-
I think that would do, so we put the money into it,
So we only
right?
have
Okay, so that's just,
We have 392 at Holmes, but that includes 6th grade.
mhm.
So every other school, every other elementary keeps their 6th grade
Mhm.
except for Brownell.
So we keep.
So you took off this, so 7th and 8th grade.
It's just 350 kids.
Okay.
352 kids right now that we have in 7th and 8th grade that's at Holmes.
Okay.
This is not taking ALA students into consideration at all.
But
So-
you would put those,
Right.
you would put them together.
So middle school starts when?
It depends
So it
on.
depends on what you want to do. You can do
6th grade.
You can do
7th grade
6th
most
grade, or you can do
Right now,
7th and 8th
6th grade.
grade. Right now, we only have 6th grade from
From
So-
middle school
Right.
is really 7th through 8th grade.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. All of your 7th and 8th graders attend Holmes
Oh, okay.
currently.
Okay.
Your 6th grade Brownell students also attend Holmes, but your 6th grade Pierce students stay at Pierce. So all of your 7th and 8th graders in the whole district go to Holmes. So Danielle has proposed maybe making Doyle Ryder your
A
middle
junior high.
school, a
I
junior
like that,
high,
yeah.
which is a great suggestion. That's something that you talked about. So that would be, but then would you close then Brownell and then make your Holmes your K6 for that area?
I would say that campus area, yeah, absolutely.
One
Okay.
large-
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think you need both buildings.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't think so.
And then I'll save on some teachers and some cost expenditures for the building. And then they can go right over there to Northwestern and then have them do junior high for Door Rider since we putting so much money in it.
Yeah.
And then if they they build a new school over here on Central and Whittier campus.
Yeah, that's what I would.
And then, cause then those kids that's in your lottery and those kids that Door Rider can fill up your South Side school and hopefully you can get some of them students from Grand Blanc. And I think if we did it like that, we'd have more than enough students to have 2 high schools, 2 junior highs, in those 4 elements.
So in your scenario, you're just saying Doyle Ryder is the only junior high. We're not saying-
I would like to see 2. For me, I would like to see one at Door Rider and something closer to the south end of town.
So
Not
you're
exactly sure.
keeping Holmes as a middle school then?
And then Doyle Ryder.
No, she's saying Doyle Ryder and some other school.
I think the homes would be the elementary.
So I want you to understand, we only have 352 7th and 8th graders. Like we don't,
Okay.
realistically, we don't have enough
But
students
would
to
that be-
support 2 schools.
So okay, I get that. But with that being said, how many did you say Door Rider holds?
Doyle Ryder holds 432 kids.
So once we move them there, we about fill that up.
Right.
So I'm thinking growth minded too.
Once you move.
Yeah, I'm
thinking growth minded.
I got to ask you a question. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah,
One
So I
thing
messed
to-
that up. I'm
when
sorry,
you-
it's 374.
one thing too is super important
Okay.
with middle school and high school to do 2 and you only have 300 some kids. So you your teachers can only teach their subject area.
Yep, it's true.
So then that you get into it's a lot harder to split that for 150 kids here and 150 kids here to have teachers that have the proper endorsement or endorsements.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we try to get them with 2 so we can
Mhm.
use them. And then when you get into 7th and higher, you're offering electives.
Yeah.
And if you dilute that and move them, then your kids are not going to get electives because you're not going to have the credentialed teachers. So it's really because that population is a little bit smaller.
Mhm.
You're going to want to put them together. Consideration. I know one of the considerations before too was you do have a large section of Southwestern. Southwestern's at like a 52% capacity. You have a lot of room there. You either, could move ALA to one side, or you could move your middle school. I think you guys have tried that before. I don't know if that wasn't.
Like
But
that.
they've got a makerspace and some other stuff that they're hoping to develop and get.
Yeah, what would we make it a middle school, you think?
Mr. Jones, I have a question. When we talk about Door Rider, those rooms that downstairs, which is kindergarten and your pre-Ks and stuff, are they gonna be, have rooms now with doors and walls? You got downstairs on that first level.
So the
That's
goal-
where they was
yeah.
keeping the kindergarten, GISD were doing the kindergartens and,
Yeah.
okay. So are those rooms gonna be sectional? Cause that lower level just pretty much open space. And so how many rooms can we get downstairs? Have y'all looked at that? How many classrooms? On that level down, I put it kindergarten and first grade.
So you got one, you currently have 1, 2, so there is a space there
Uh-huh.
that is like, I think right now it's not being used as a classroom, could be. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It
So
would be a total of 7. Right now it's
Right
6.
downstairs.
Right now it's 6. However,
We got this
you
big
got
space
this
on
side,
it. Yeah,
and then on this side you have the pre-K,
right.
which is 1, 2, 3 rooms.
So are you saying that we could add capacity to Doyle Ryder by creating these additional classrooms? Is that what you're saying?
You can add 1. You can add 1.
Just one classroom?
Yeah. To
Oh,
that.
I thought you were
Yeah.
saying 6 and 7.
No, I'm counting the rooms.
Oh.
Yeah. Keep in mind, you need, if it was kindergarten, we needed more space, square footage space for kindergarten.
Correct.
So that's why the rooms were so large, because if we're looking at taking them back down to junior high, then we can have less space, because the kindergartens and pre-K require more footage. Am I correct?
Yeah, but I would say that these classrooms at Doyle Ryder, they what they are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
They're what they are.
So when you are you still putting walls downstairs as we speak now? When we say I'm going to take
That's
this,
the current
I think
plan.
it's tomorrow, right?
It is tomorrow. That is the plan. Is to put walls up in all of those rooms.
Oh, okay,
That's
good.
the current plan.
So, I just wanna say to Laura, me and Danielle is over here talking, coming up with some good ideas you want us to put together.
Yeah, but you only got 2 heads.
But
That's
this
the problem.
is,
Just the crinkling of your.
so this is all I'm messing with you, because I think this is a hot idea. Y'all might run me about it when I say this. Okay, if we have to, can we turn, because somebody threw the ad building in there. Can Doyle Ryder be the new ad building? Because we done spent too much money on Doyle Ryder at this point, $600,000 out the general fund on the new roof. If we was gonna close Doyle Ryder, we should have determined that before we spent that $600,000 out the general fund. But now and I ain't saying we gotta get rid of this, but I heard somebody put it out there and be mentioned. So if we got rid of the ad building, we're gonna need somewhere for our administrators. So is it a possibility for us to make Joel Ryder the new ad building, since we're already invested, before we put up all these 10,000 walls and all this extra money renovating it as a school and end up closing it? We could make that the new ad building.
I would not want to take that beautiful school away.
Well, I wouldn't either, but
I wouldn't want
we got
that
your
for
choice.
myself. So bad.
Hold on. Let me say this though. Y'all don't want to talk me. We gotta make some tough choices. So I'm making some tough choices. Kevin,
And again, I'm just saying.
I know I do, and I would like to see. I'll be honest. I would like to see.
That's a historical building and all that good stuff too, right? Isn't it good historic stuff?
That would kill that
1902.
Something, I know I read some
Right.
stuff.
I would like to see. I would like to see Dora Ryder continue to
But
be a
what
school.
would that do for us?
No,
I
I
don't know
don't
that
think that, yeah,
I don't know that that helps
the only thing,
situation.
when I mentioned maybe closing this is because we do have capacity in other buildings, is to, you know, obviously have us move into.
Okay, second scenario. Hold on. Second scenario. Okay. So Durant Terry Mott, can we make that a school for our special needs students with the extra IPs that need the pool and all that, and maybe make that a specialty school?
Well, no, you can't.
That's illegal.
No, not Dora Ryder or Durant Terry Mott. Can we
No,
just?
you
Can't
can't.
say.
No, you,
Oh, okay.
yep, you had to offer, yep.
Okay, well, you can still offer, but I'm saying let that be.
You can't even name it that. No.
When you say you can segregate.
No, you can, like if you can only offer one CI classroom, you obviously can do that. You don't have to offer a CI classroom in every building. It have only 2 students in it. You can do something like that. But, a lot of our special education students are not fully in special ed and CI classrooms.
Right.
They're
So
considered
they
general
are, so they might only pull out to a
I'm talking about
resource
severely.
room, teacher because they need additional supports in reading or speech or math.
Right.
And then they go into the quote unquote
classroom.
general ed classroom. So we can't just have, now actually I think during Charlie Mott used to kind of be that way because it was like your center, your county-wide, you know, class, but that's all been changed. And so we can do our specialized classrooms there. Like again, if we don't, in let's say Potter, we don't need a CI room because there's not enough children. We can bring them to Durant Terry Mott and have them attend there. And we do that. We do that now. We transport all over. So
with that being said, say we got kids with special needs that go to regular school, that's in our regular schools.
Sure.
That have to have additional services that are needing special help, because I've gotten several calls from parents with students that have special needs that feel like their kids are not getting what they need in our regular schools. I'm wondering, can we set up like some type of, like you used to do when you were gifted, you used to go to Walker. Well, if you got a special need at a certain time of the day, or however they're gonna set it up, can those students be transported to Durant Terry Mott for additional, can it be like an additional service site?
so
How is
sometimes
that?
people,
How is that killing the deficit? Like, how is that?
Well, my thing is, it might not, well, first of all, we can keep doing Ryder because I think when we get rid of that, like Dr. Joyce said, it's gonna kill the thing. But we're losing a lot of parents, and we got a lot of discouraged parents that's leaving the district because their kids got special needs and can't get with that. So I think we might need to highlight that we're concentrating on our students with special needs to advance them and offer additional services, and maybe that would carry Durant Terry Mott financially, because we'd be able to bring some kids in that weren't getting what they need. Because like I said, I know several kids with special needs, we done lost the hat.
Less buildings means less vacancy.
Yes.
Okay.
And keep in mind when we talk about special needs, for instance, when I teach out in Mount Borger, I was at school in Antonio, what I like about them with special, I can walk in the classroom, there's no more than 10 kids, 10 or 12 kids in that classroom. And they used to turn special need, but some of them just want special need, they come in just for specials. So, and that's why a lot of parents are leaving, because they walk into their room and I got 10 kids. And that parent is comfortable because they know that I can service 10 kids.
Right.
I cannot serve, and those IEPs are getting so long. One kid might require 45 minutes of my time, 60 minutes. So when I got an IEP and I got 15 or 20 kids, and each one of those kids IEP, so I got to service them 35 minutes in math, 45, 65. So one kid takes 65 or 40 minutes of my time, and these IEPs are getting longer and longer. So that's the challenge that we're having with the parent. It's those IEPs, and just not Flint. Even when I'm down in Detroit, it's those IEPs.
Yeah.
They are two, so, if you give me a student and all their IEPs, 15 to 20 kids, and all their IEPs is 60 to some minutes. Now, keep in mind, they're not in special ed all day. So I'm pulling them out of their classroom. I got to put this schedule together. So I got to go get him. Well, he's in math. Well, he really needs to be in math, but I need to do his IEP now because I'm running out of time. So then the kid wants to go to gym, but I got this IEP because, you can get in trouble if you don't do this IEP. So I got this IEP. So I got to go pull 4 or 5 kids, interrupt them, and give them their IEP service. At the same time, I'm pulling them out of their crucial classes, which they need. But if we could create a smaller space, classroom for these IEP students, here we go again. A couple of people helping out. Normally, it's 2. But then when somebody drop off, you're stuck by yourself. But we got to start to thinking now, we got a scenario to get. And we can cross some of these bridges when we get there, but we got to select what scenario are we going to choose so Ms. Don Prey can get to starting on. Because we got plenty of time to get to this. All of a good idea. So could we, today she looking for us to make a decision about what scenario.
So, I was just about to say, we've got 10 minutes at 7:20 till, just to be mindful of time, that we were scheduled to 7:30, and I know that we've gone over before, but we were,
I thought it was 8:30.
oh, is it 8:30? Okay, that's what I saw. So, I mean, we can certainly,
Can we select the scenario?
So it says discuss EDUP scenarios. We've discussed it. It said next steps. So if we're at a point where we'd like to potentially select one, or do we, I mean, is there any more discussion, or do we need to set another meeting? What's the pleasure?
Mr. Prey, we select scenario number 4. Okay, then we go back and say, well, after we look at all this data and say, well, it could be a scenario number 5. So then you would have to go back and readjust that whole report. Because if we said scenario 4, it's not like we locked down to scenario 4. Okay.
So if we say scenario 4, it would be helpful if somebody gave me 4 schools today.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we said we
Here.
choose a scenario number
To
4,
close.
give me 4 schools so that we can go
So she
back
can
and
do the
do
scenario.
some, put some
4
real
schools to close.
numbers to it. Yes,
Okay.
you giving me 2.
Pierce
Mm-hmm.
and AL.
Okay. I need 2 more schools.
And then also, you're still gonna do a scenario with 5 schools. So what was the hay? Or 5 buildings?
So that's what, school buildings and an admin building, selected 5 buildings. So whatever 4 schools.
I'm just saying
Southwestern, yeah.
that we're up to 4, but we're still.
So you want to close Southwestern?
Southwestern.
And so where would you put those students?
And Central.
Or Central when we build it, and Northwestern.
We can't do it when we build it. We can't do when we build it. It's gotta be something.
Okay, well,
You can't do
Northwestern.
what now?
You can't say
Can't
when
talk
we
about new
build it.
buildings.
Okay.
Oh,
So send them to Northwestern, and then let's build our new school over there on Central's campus, and then let them break off like that.
So are you saying we do the renovation, start working on renovation at
And
Northwest?
Northwestern, and so
And-
next year we can
Because
move.
most of the kids go Southwestern from North Side anyway, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, they do.
And so if we look at closing Southwestern, but would we be able to get that renovation done in time for that?
If we
I don't know
start
about
on
that.
I mean, it don't mean a lot though. We
I
need
mean,
to probably
Right, so just so we're clear, closing
Yeah.
Southwestern and moving them to Northwestern would not be closing a building.
Why we ain't closing Southwestern?
Because, well, Northwestern
It's gonna be open.
Oh, 'cause they
With the
picking
move-
up.
it's just moving them
Okay, I
from
got
one to
Still
the other.
Southwestern though, y'all.
Yeah,
So we said
Southwestern
here's
City.
ALA,
Are you, you're thinking about closing Southwestern?
Still, yeah, because the kids is transported from across town.
Okay.
Where you gonna put
Where you
but
gonna
what
put
we gonna put them in the
Northwestern.
meantime?
You're gonna put
That's
us in, that doesn't.
I understand what you guys
No,
saying.
Eliminate.
We got that part.
If you're
We still got a
Order.
It's a good idea.
If we're going to do the scenario though, if you're suggesting,
We gotta stick to the.
we've got to, yeah, we've got to
Okay.
do 5 or 6.
What about three?
Well, I think that's fine to think about closing that building and then moving them to Northwestern. So
Okay, listen, she's trying to give us.
part of your plan then would be to improve Northwestern so that it's a viable building. We've had that conversation for a few years now, what needs to happen. That was something we haven't really touched on tonight either, is, you know, we still have your food service there. What are we doing with that campus?
Right.
If you wanna move them there, that's fine, but right, so to go along, she can put that in
Yeah.
into this whole deal, but we still need a couple more.
Okay, Brownell, we can close Brownell, move those kids at Brownell into homes.
Uh-huh.
And let that,
Space
and
for
then
that.
we can
That's what
take
it
those
was
kids
anyway.
that's at homes, them 7th and 8th graders, and put them over at Northwestern. If we change those kids from Southwestern to Northwestern, then we can close the building.
Now, homes, where are we gonna put them, we're gonna leave the middle
We
school?
can take the middle school kids and put them at Northwestern. Northwestern is big enough to house the 7th and 8th graders and the high school students.
Okay.
Northwestern is one of
Yeah.
our largest campuses.
Yep.
Then we can take homes and make that the elementary
Yep.
until we can get it knocked down and
Yep.
renovated.
Yep.
We can use that building. Plus, our early child care development is already there.
In home, yeah.
So if we're thinking about Pierce, ALA, Brownell,
One more.
So, but wait, let's
We
go back
close
on
it
that.
down.
Wait, let's go back on ALA now, cause
Where
we
you gonna
gotta
put
talk
these
about
kids?
where are we putting them? Where are we putting ALA?
Where do we
Oh,
go?
we're talking about closing school and come the fall of the year, where are we gonna put these kids? That's
No,
what we're
right,
looking
I'm
at.
just saying, we need
You won't
to,
close
what
until
you're
20.
hoping is to,
When we close,
23, 24.
So you would need to do 23, 24 because you
Okay.
won't be ready.
Right.
And that's what you telling me. I don't know how we would be ready to close
Right,
these
okay.
schools for August.
it depends on what you're closing. Pierce is easy.
Mhm.
Pierce
Yes,
is easy to
Pierce is
close,
easy.
that's something you could realize, so in her scenario, Ms. Dempray can close Pierce next year, that one's
Mhm.
easy.
Mhm.
If you're closing ALA, well, it depends on what you're doing with them. If you're putting them in Southwestern for 1 year, cause you're not gonna move those kids yet, that's easy, you can do that next year as well.
I like
Then
that.
when you,
as a transition.
then when you, depending on what other elementary, you possibly could close that one as well. Now, that next school year, you work on renovating Northwestern, if that's what you're going to do. And then so in the scenario she would be moving that building in year 2, FY 23, whatever you have now.
23,
Yeah.
24.
23, it would be FY 24. So those are the kind of things, so but what other elementary?
if we look at closing, can I get everybody attention? We look at closing ALA and moving, ALA over to like the orange or the yellow hall in homes, you know, sits way over that way. If you understand how home is structured, put the ALA go on the red room or the yellow hallway at home. Because we're not using that whole home school just to house 6, 7, and 8.
So ALA, I just want you to consider,
It's a
the,
different challenge.
it's a different population. I
Yeah.
just want you to consider that when you talk about where you're gonna,
Because
who
you
you're
can't
gonna
keep
put
them
them with.
separated, yeah.
Because those are what our special.
Accelerated learning.
It's kind of your non-traditional high school. You have your traditional high school
Good
at
choice of
Southwestern,
words. Mhm.
and then you have your non-traditional. I will say, we went through the same experience, in my district. We moved our non-traditionals back into the high school, but they're completely separated. It was difficult at first for people, but now there is no interaction. And I think we had talked about that too with Southwestern before, you know, kind of separating it, then keeping them to the east side. It does work.
Mhm.
So I know in our experience, we haven't had an issue. That is a possibility. But perhaps putting them in an elementary might not be
Yeah.
as acceptable.
I don't like
So
that.
I just, you know, we want to, so if I think we all agree on Pierce, ALA we get, but we got to think about where
Could we
we're
take
putting
ALA
them.
and put them in Southwestern?
Yes,
We
exactly.
talked about that before. We looked
Yep,
at
we
it,
did,
right?
yeah.
Could we
We were-
take ALA and put them in Southwestern?
Yeah.
Temporarily or permanently?
Permanent, that's
Yeah,
it.
like the separation we talked about
Yeah.
years ago.
Yep, and we, I think with intention and, you know, with some thought, you can do that, and it can be a clean
separation. You have your own principal, you have your own thing going on, and the east side with LA, and then on the west side of the building, you have your Southwestern. It also gives those students an opportunity, even though they're in the non-traditional track. Let's say you have someone, they want to be in LA, but man, they really want to take Spanish or something, they do have that ability to perhaps, in circumstances, to do that, or maybe integrate again. If they want to, then they don't have to, they can never see each other. It's definitely, but then you talked about second year closing Southwestern and moving them to Northwestern. So if we do that, we would move that whole population again, which is totally fine.
And the good thing about ALA going to Southwestern, they got robotics, they still have the entrepreneur thing going on at Southwestern. They got a lot of other activity at Southwestern that I think that ALA students will be interested in.
I could do club. So we're at ALA.
So we moved ALA.
And that can be done next year. Pierce can be closed for next year.
We got 2 more.
So what else are we thinking?
So
Eisenhower?
I don't know, I'm looking at this. and I
Well,
can't-
my paper go ahead, if I'm like.
I think there has to be a school that comes out of Eisenhower, Freeman, and Nethercutt. One of those three.
And do you, I think Eisenhower and Nethercutt, if we close
Yeah,
it.
that's enough.
It's gonna be one of these.
Any of your schools.
Eisenhower and Nethercutt?
Right.
We're not gonna.
So are we just picking the low hanging fruit or what?
Yeah,
Is that what that is? That's what it sounds like.
I mean, I'm not,
So it's gonna be one of
okay,
these.
okay,
Oh,
let's
sorry.
bring it back in.
Okay, we was talking
We
about.
making decisions.
Okay, but this is a board, this is exactly what this is for, so if you need to speak, like, speak to all of us, so.
Okay, we gather kid or Freeman.
Wait,
Oh.
Chris, did you have your, Chris, you just
No,
raised
I
your-
just think that the next closure needs to come between Eisenhower, Freeman, and Nethercutt.
Yeah.
One of those three.
Yeah.
Okay, so who else?
Moved.
Okay, so that's Danielle?
And I suggested it not be Eisenhower because of the population there, and it's a good population, good sized population of the Arabic population. They go there and they have kids too.
And
I
they're
think
very
that-
vocal,
And
and
so
they,
I was
they
thinking,
came, to
Mhm.
protest,
Yeah,
closing the
absolutely.
school, that's right.
and I was thinking, another kid or Freeman is what I was at.
Wait,
And I was like, Nethercutt, because you can split those kids.
I think you guys gonna make a big mistake if you shut Nethercutt down and just put the
Okay.
pre-K in now.
Okay.
That is a new community
I
over
thought
there,
Freeman
and
was
it's
neat.
popular.
And I went to Freeman.
Right.
And we can get those, everybody in my district, just about everybody that could be going to Nethercutt. A Grand Blanc bus come down, green bus, 2 or 3 buses.
Mhm.
They're picking kids up out of Nethercutt area, taking them over there. You got international picking them up
Mhm.
and taking them over. Plus you got the children, you got young people over there. So we cannot afford to take
Freeman
them.
is.
So Freeman, y'all.
Freeman.
It's John Prey, I say Freeman.
what you
Okay, let me tell you what I have. Okay, so what I have is Pierce, ALA, happening next school year.
Okay.
Freeman, I don't know, we haven't discussed the time, and Southwestern going 23-24.
Yeah,
One more time.
23, 24, yeah.
So
because we
Pierce
can't-
Okay.
We won't have
and
nothing ready for them till
ALA will be
2022.
Just let Ms. Dunphy
I just can't
talk.
hear.
And yeah, because
Mr.
if you
What's
let
that?
her just
We can't
talk,
hear.
then we'll be able to get it.
So we're saying Pierce
Okay.
and ALA will be in August. They
Okay.
will change in August, so 22-23.
Okay.
And we're saying Southwestern will be in the 23-24 school year.
Okay.
And then for Freeman, we haven't discussed when that will be.
But what about Brownell? Didn't we say Brownell too?
Are we doing Brownell as well?
Brownell.
Right now, it's
She didn't say-
So I would
So
say,
Brownell into homes right now?
I mean, whenever we can, I mean,
well, that's not one of them then.
That's not a
But
close, that's a
That's part of the
transfer.
transition.
Transition.
So we've got Pierce, ALA, and Freeman, which are the, and I would say Freeman for 22-23.
So will we be able to transition the kids in August from Freeman?
So you have 216 at Freeman, and they would go to Nethercutt and where they would go to. So, well, your whole line's what I think would shift probably. So 216. So Eisenhower has a capacity of 41 kids. So that leaves us with Nethercutt has a capacity of 33. So they do not fit when you do that. And that's gonna probably be some of our problems in the south end.
Okay, once again, the consultant is speaking, I wanna hear, because that's what we're paying you, I'm listening to what you're saying. You're saying we're gonna close,
If we were to close Freeman, we currently have 216, and that's if we keep our K6. So maybe what we need to think about too is our sixth grade, taking our sixth grade out. But currently we have 216 students at Freeman. At Eisenhower, we have 40. We have room for 41 of those students.
Oh, that ain't enough.
At Nethercutt, we have room for 33.
Oh, that's not gonna work. Yeah.
So
That
in
area
this,
for-
so
yeah.
right now, what we have in our enrollment, Freeman has 37 sixth graders. Eisenhower has 33 sixth graders. Nethercutt has 38 sixth graders.
So that's 90, almost, that's 100. So they just have one class, probably. So, and again, that kind of goes, maybe that makes sense too, to move your sixth, because again, we probably have 3 very large sixth grade classes, where if we had put them, if we had them all in one building, you could have 4 nice classes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just things that, you know, that could possibly take place if we moved them together.
Right.
So what you need to know is that in the district in total, including the ones that are at home, we have 286 sixth graders in the entire district.
So move them to junior high.
Okay. So we're keeping the junior high at homes right now. You have capacity to move the sixth graders
To junior high.
into junior high.
That's what needs to
That's what
happen.
we.
So then your homes becomes your 6 through 8 for the district.
Home,
Can you move the head, can you move the early head start?
Out of homes,
Yeah, can you
And
move
put
the,
it in Brownell.
you could probably
We're
do that.
closing Brownell though.
I thought we said we could do
But we
it.
can't Brownell,
Right.
yeah, we can't close Brownell because then you wouldn't have an elementary at the
Right,
north
so you
end.
can't
So we
go
can
so
put
we
the
can't,
early childhood.
but you can
development
move the
in.
early childhood from,
but I thought you were closing.
But they said we can't do that till the year after because Northwestern wouldn't be ready.
I
So
think
that's-
we missed something very, very important here at this table.
Okay.
The administration, you two have to make a decision for the board to agree on what 4 schools you're gonna close. Don't put this weight on the board. You two, administration. What's your
It's already on we doing the scenario.
We just wanted the
We
scenario.
got scenario for number 4. Is that what we voted on, scenario number 4?
scenario number 4 is 4 schools. It's
So
I'm trying to
so
get
then the
4
administration comes in and we done had a discussion, then the superintendent and the
We'll try to figure out how to make.
how
this
to
thing
make
work.
that work, and then you bring it back to the board, am I correct? And to bring it back to the board, and the board would approve it.
Can
We
get
shouldn't
it
have to make this decision for you guys.
Can we?
You're gonna have to support it.
Yeah.
We have to support it, yeah.
You don't wanna come and say schools that you're not gonna support.
So what school are you saying that we need to, am I correct? And Mo, you can correct me if I missed something. So we're talking about, we made that we're gonna do 4 scenarios, right? Which include 4 schools, right? Then this administration has a input, superintendent and you guys have an input on what 4 schools that we can be, and then we can agree to where you at. Because you guys got all the meat and information about this. What 4 schools that you're looking at, we done made our discussion, but we ain't made it final. We probably have to get some policy on it. Am I correct, somebody?
I think that's a good idea, so they can really crunch these to see like who fits where, and to show you is for them. So now that I think what we were trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just to get us to understand that this has to happen, and the why, and the understand. So I think we're all there.
I think it's happening.
Yeah, we doing work. We
Yeah.
ain't just we doing work.
So then if they could get the scenario, why, and then come back with some different ones and some rationale as to,
Yeah, that's
well,
what I'm
we're
talking
gonna
about,
do
yeah.
this, and here's our why, and this is how they fit.
No
And that way-
Yeah, you lay it, I'm not, I'm just
No,
trying to
I
make
think,
sure.
I think
We
that that's what your administration,
Yeah.
that's what they would love to do for you.
Do we have the floor
Listen,
yet?
wait.
So hang on, so
So Ms. Dunbar, you got 3 schools so far?
I have 3 schools so far.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
have
so
Pierce, I
that's
have
what
Bay
I
and Lake, I have Southwestern, and I have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you are. Can we get in one of the scenarios, because it has been mentioned, and it don't have to be Rolling Stone, if we shut down the administration building and moved it maybe to Dora Ryder? We talked about moving it to Northwestern at one time, but can we see the administration building in one of these,
Absolutely.
in one of these scenarios?
So with the scenario with 4 buildings, we can make another, we can do the scenario with 4 buildings and include the administration.
Yeah, or make the administration building the fourth building.
So make the administration building the
No.
4th.
Northwestern is currently being used, right?
Yeah.
But there's a portion of Northwestern that's not being used.
Yeah.
right.
That
That could be the
possibly-
administration, yeah. We
So
discussed
so I wanna make sure I understand what you're saying. You only wanna do 3 school buildings
I'm saying,
and 1 administration building.
I'm saying, since we are supposed to have more than one scenario, if y'all guys wanna do a scenario with 4 school buildings, fine. But I would like to see in one of those scenarios, where it's the one with the 3 and the ad building the 4th, or where it's the one with 4 schools and the ad building be the 5th.
Mhm.
I would like to see some cost savings, including the ad building being moved, to one of these other sites, because this does cost money, and we do have people here working, and if we moved all those people somewhere else, that could be some support staff, because you're right there on site for something else. Anyway, long story short, that could be some savings for the district, so I would like to see a scenario
What
that includes that.
What is the utilization of this building?
This one was not included in the study.
I think too, what administration might find out is that once, once you take away like, we might not get to where we can close 4 because we might not fit,
Right.
depending on what we close. We can't put our elementary in our high school,
No, right.
Northwestern or Southwestern.
Right,
We might not have a high school.
Right.
So we might get to that. So I think that's the best thing to do, is really to look at these numbers. Where would the students fit? Kind of taking out, just making it fit and making it work. You might find that you can't really, there might not be a lot of options or much to do for. And then that's where we go back to the state and say, listen, we're gonna do the hard work, but we do have to be able to house our students if we can.
that's right,
Have to.
Absolutely.
So is this a building then that do we move? Do we go into Northwestern? Do we not? What makes the most sense? And for them to put those scenarios together so that, that work gets done.
Yeah, I think from what I was looking at, we've got like these different closure of 3 different buildings or different building compositions. So we could like do like 3 plus administration, then 4, and then you said we could crunch 5. Just hypothetically, I know it sounds like 5 is going to be impossible to do, but just hypothetically, so that we have the numbers.
I definitely would like to see the ad building included in the
Yeah.
5th option, because like you said, when we get to crunch the numbers, we might not be able to get all our kids in one building.
Okay, all right, and
So my one concern is that we closed Southwestern too early. I can see Southwestern being used. I mean, if we close it, I guess we can probably sell it. It's a good location, along the expressway. But can Freeman and Nethercutt eventually one day fit into Southwestern?
The problem is that you'd have to redo all of the bathroom facilities, which, I mean, they may need to be redone, but that's a high school setup and not set up for small children. So, I mean, so they could definitely go there next year because of that, but, and it is a pretty big building, but I mean, everything is possible. We have the funds to do some remodeling and doing bathrooms. I'm sure we could get that approved, I would think. So it's certainly possible. So that is something too that they might want to look at. But then where are you putting your big kids? You can't put them in the elementary. I mean,
Right.
So the other thing is, as far as Northwestern, I would see a need for Northwestern at some point to move, Doyle Ryder there while the reconstruction, rebuilding, or not Doyle Ryder,
Brown Allen Homes.
Brown Allen Homes, yes, thank you. So that they're there while the construction is going on, demolition, whatever it may end up being. I don't know at this point, I don't see where we need two high schools, especially if we're gonna build a new one on the central campus.
We don't have it yet, though. And we
But
don't
that's
have.
true.
money
We're not
for it.
talking about like,
Building.
new buildings, right? And
We're talking about what we
we're-
got now.
right now, we're just talking about the scenarios and
Right.
using the ESSER funds, which we can't have new buildings with the ESSER
Right.
funds. So,
In remarks, keep in mind, the community love, the kids love walking to school in their communities. So you take the Nethercutt area. Very seldom do you see a bus pull up in front of Nethercutt. You know why? Because all the students walk to school. This is what a community is. Community is that I don't have to be at the bus stop at 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing in the dark, trying to get cross town. And these are elementary kids going anywhere.
Little kid.
They want to be able to walk, go to school. I can sit on I'm seeing my kids walk, going to school, getting out of school. They got a crossing guard. Same thing with you. We're looking at closing these schools, keeping in mind the convenience. And we always talk about that. We want kids to be able to leave out their house at a reasonable time and walk to school. So we know we're not going to close. Why would we going to close Nethercutt and put those babies on a bus and send them way across town and when they can walk to? Same thing with Doyle Ryder. Majority of kids walk. I think Ms. McIntyre, we had talked about this. We're going to look at transportation, how to get these kids. We had talked about 2023. We're working on Central. I think we had talked about that. 11 Central, start working on Central 2023 to 2024. Which one is it coming down? Southwestern? Southwestern, getting rid of Southwestern. So if we follow that format that we had in place, it'll work. You know, because you got to have somewhere for these kids, but to close down a school and those kids are walking to school.
And to make a point to what Dr. Joyce is saying, a lot of parents have to go to work before their kids go to school.
Yeah.
So I know all my neighbors. So if my kid got to walk to school, I can have Dr. Joyce watch my baby walk to school.
I appreciate that sentiment, but keeping these buildings open is hurting the whole district.
No, we
right?
understand
We
that.
understand, we just talking about Nethercutt.
We're talking about the
But
community
but
piece.
a school
It's gonna
up
catch the
to
bus.
4 needs
Yeah.
to close so that we can provide the best service to our students and so that we can pay for our teachers. You know, we're gonna, in these scenarios, remember, it takes us 10 years to get out, but some of these years we're running 5 million in the hole. How are we paying the bills that year?
Right.
How are we
We got
keeping the lights on if, and that's even closing 4 buildings.
Really?
That's even closing 4 buildings. So our district, it's very hard because you were used to 40 schools and having that every building or every neighborhood has its own building. I understand that, but for even our geographical size, we're not that large, and to have 4 elementaries and a high school and a middle school, like that's still appropriate. We're even mile wise, right? We're 35 square miles.
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus 35 square miles. There's lots of districts that are larger, and so children ride the bus or walk or whatever. So I'm not trying to take away from that. If we could have all those buildings open and put to par, that's exactly what we'd want. But unfortunately, we just don't have the dollars to just do all of that. So we just have to make those hard decisions as to how do we best serve our students that we have. And keeping all these buildings open, running at subpar levels is not the best way.
Danielle and then Pastor David.
So the buildings we're talking about closing, including the ad building, once we decide for sure, that's when we'll start selling stuff. I'm ready to have that conversation too, y'all. I can't wait for that because we need to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Get the
Okay.
EDAP done, and then you guys will get back on that.
So
Okay.
can we reiterate the buildings that You want, that's up.
Pastor Gilbert, did you have something?
I was just gonna say about our students, they're gonna be extremely impacted. No doubt about it. And we're gonna be going into the lion's mouth. That's where we're gonna be going. There's no question about it.
Yep.
I already got it, and we haven't even made a decision. We haven't even got there yet. But what we gotta do is, that's right, we gotta lessen the blow. We gotta do we gotta do it. But that deficit part is the only way to do it.
That's it. So
I just want us to remember now, we kind of talked, we had a good session. I don't want to dampen nobody, but this is some heavy lifting here. This is nothing to play with. Because when after church, they hit me, and I just done shouted and had the victory. They hit me. Because I'm on the board, I want to be able to tell them that we did this together with the community in front of everybody, administration. So we got to really do this. We got to go through with it, and I can't say one thing downtown or uptown or around town. I got to say everybody got to say the same thing everywhere we go.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that double talk if it gets you in trouble. I'm sorry, I didn't want to preach.
So Superintendent, you were saying, to get back on track, what are the ones that we are considering?
Yes, ma'am. And it seems like it's Pierce, ALA, and Southwestern. Oh, Lord.
Slow down. Pierce, LA.
Pierce, ALA, Southwestern, and Freeman.
Okay.
in the admin building.
And
An admin building, yep.
Right.
Don't be trying to leave that out.
So so I just want to clarify. So in the one scenario, I'm gonna do Pierce, ALA, Southwestern, Freeman, and the admin building.
Mm-hmm.
In another scenario, we said 3 schools, so just hear me. Pierce, ALA, Southwestern, and the admin building.
Okay.
Is that okay?
If you do 3 scenarios, take the ad building out of one scenario that you do. So we can just see what the numbers are and get a realistic vibe for what we're up against.
So could we take the admin out of the report school we had, take the admin out, and then in the third scenario, add the admin in?
Yeah. It's more than one.
so if you close Southwestern, the goal is to open up Northwestern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do we put the food service?
And
Still
then
like a question.
you got the cafeteria. You got the cafeteria no matter what. You don't have more students in the cafeteria.
Yeah, it can stay there. Central kitchen to stay there.
And it's in there.
We can't do it in FY23. We would have to wait till
ALA goes to Southwestern for the next school year.
Yeah.
I just want to and Pierce is going to,
Wherever
That's a
your lines are
FY23.
drawn.
we'll figure that out. We'll figure
And then if you guys see something different,
Yeah, we do.
bring it out.
Yeah,
If you got a good idea, I mean, we together. Right?
I'm worried that as you look at your numbers, which we didn't have that information last week, how do you really, great, we can say, yeah, we'll close Freeman, but there's 216 students
Right.
there. So I think you gotta reconfigure, can you get all the students to the middle
Four
school?
schools may not be a
Right. Do you put all the middle school at full?
Um,
And then does that make it work? So I think that you're able to maybe, when you dive into those numbers, to see what's realistic. And then the board then can see the scenarios.
Right.
Once you decide on what actually works.
So I just got another question. Once we
Just one?
So once you take ALA and put it in Southwestern, they will go together to Northwestern.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. And then we'll build our new school on the south side, and then they can decide where they want to be and how we got vision. Build a third high school, so when they see what's going on, they can white overflow.
If we don't build a new school, it's like they're gonna run us out of time.
Okay, so we're good. I mean, I know we're not good. We haven't finished the discussion and stuff, but I'm just thinking for the purposes
Step one.
of this meeting,
Mhm.
right? So next steps, we've got the next steps, right?
And Ms.
Ms. Domprey, you
is
have
going
what
to.
I have what I need to go back.
So how
to
much
the
time do you
scenario.
need for the next
so I don't want
She
to.
don't know, she gotta talk to the
Yeah,
guy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So can
I
you
gotta
do
talk.
this? Soon as you talk to him,
Yes.
can you send us an email
Yes.
so we can set that next meeting up immediately? Let's not wait a week after we heard from him,
Yep.
Yes.
cause we could be brainstorming.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll get down on.
Okay, and so another thing is that the finance subcommittee meeting is usually on a Monday. So we will have a finance subcommittee meeting on Monday. Do we want to make it a CAL meeting like this, just to, even if you don't have,
Or I don't expect to have anything.
I don't expect you
Okay.
either. I don't expect, trust me. I'm just saying, is it something else that, is that something the finance subcommittee meeting on Monday, which is, it's regularly scheduled on Monday, do you wanna make it a CAL meeting or just have it the regular finance subcommittee meeting?
Which one ever come first?
You wanna do it.
So I just want to say this, I won't have this data for Monday. I will not have that for us to discuss on Monday. We already discussed that. I guarantee you, I won't have it on Monday.
Okay, so we.
So whatever we just, what else would we be discussing?
I'm just
Relating to
opening
this.
up the subcommittee meeting. I'm
I don't
just
think it's
asking.
No,
I don't think it's
I
necessary.
think we should wait on Mr.
Yeah,
Craig.
to let us know.
And then we got a lot of other stuff that we can be working on,
That's right.
that we need to talk about drinking some.
There is
Right.
some items that needs to be discussed with your subcommittee though.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
But I just, for the full
Okay.
transparency, I wanted to say, it's gonna be on Monday. Should we open it up, given that we've been doing all this work?
We got
we
to
got
give Ms.
stuff.
Domprey a chance.
And so we'll just wait.
I appreciate you, Ms. Domprey.
Thank you.
So what I would like to bring up to get it before the COW, committee of the whole, is to have the administration put out a request for proposal to tear down some of these buildings that we know we're gonna tear down.
Okay, so this is, this isn't
We're not
an
taking any
action.
action,
Right, we're not, okay, so maybe this is something that we could put on the agenda for the committee, for the COW or the regular meeting, but it's
Yeah.
not.
Can you explain what you're asking?
Well, how much will it take to clean up Washington? How much would it take to tear down Jefferson? How much would it take to tear down Central?
I think me and Mr. Jones.
All the buildings that we know.
So you wanna demo all the vacant?
Well, I mean, if they're,
Dilapidated.
if they can be used, you know, in some fashion, maybe not necessarily by us, but someone else.
They
then
want
I-
to purchase the building with the land, that's all.
Well, no, I'm just, I mean, we know Washington's gotta be built.
Right. In Jefferson, that's
Zimmer.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we have to see, what we have to be mindful of is how do we pay for that? So we gotta see how we can pay to
If
demo,
the funds won't cover it.
demo, Washington. I don't know that ESSER funds will cover a demolition.
So-
So like, that's what I'm saying, we have to be mindful of how we can pay for that.
Right.
Before we put out an RFP, I gotta be prepared of how we're gonna pay for it. So if somebody comes back and go, yeah, I can do it, and I'm like, well, wait, we don't know how we're gonna pay for that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
For sure.
You just wanna know how much it costs.
Central and Whittier.
Yeah, because for future planning, I mean, if we're gonna build a new high school, or there's gonna be a new high school on the Central Whittier campus, I'm thinking that building's gotta come down.
It do, eventually.
So I would
Yeah,
say,
it's not
can
that-
I say,
nothing
I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to be mindful of Mrs. Sikelski's
Yeah.
time,
Oh.
because
Yeah.
this is an agenda item that could be added to another, and
Yeah.
it's definitely important, but
Absolutely, yeah.
we're over time.
Yeah.
And I would like to make a suggestion that we've got lots of community members here, we've discussed some things that are very emotional, if we could take comments from the community.
One more second.
But we're not there yet, but I'm just saying, if we're gonna discuss a meeting agenda item that's added at the last minute, maybe it would be best to put it in a different meeting.
Okay.
I have comments.
Yeah.
Are y'all ready? Most of the public, you remember Carol, we put all of this together? Some of them have put their bids in, for these buildings. And so we really need to deal with these, because we already put these out to the public. They already done looked at them, and some of them put requests for them. So it'll be, I don't know, we have to do due diligence and let them get the opportunity, because this right here has already, all these buildings that you're talking about, we sent out, and They did a good job on it. We done had to work, kind of like a semi-workshop. Mr. Trump had told them what. So we got people looking at these buildings, getting ready to send bids in. They've just been waiting on us. So we not need to be getting on RFPs and doing all of that because we have people requesting some of these buildings.
Well, we can call Northwestern up and say it ain't
Okay.
happening.
Okay, so
And Northwestern is not in this
it's not on the
list.
table at all. It never was.
No, it's not
It
on the
never
table.
was. So this is
gonna get
obviously
you that
something
list.
for a meeting agenda item, Madam
I agree,
President.
I agree.
We have to put into a committee of the whole. on
Yeah.
And I also want to, speak to the board, because I don't know how this would go. I'm interested in putting in a bid on a property that the district owns.
Mhm.
So I just want to put it out there with the
Say that
board.
again, I can hear you.
I'm interested in purchasing a building from the district. So I'm gonna put it out there in full disclosure. I'm gonna make my honest bid. I'm gonna try to offer the best that I can afford, and just see where it goes. But I just wanna be honest that I am interested in one of our properties. And I think as a board member, I ain't trying to beat nobody. I'm willing to do the fair
Whole
process.
process,
But
right?
I think I should be given the opportunity.
I'm glad you brought that up
Oh, yeah,
because I was
that's
going to do a board here, because that's the one I wanted. So I was just concerned with the
That's
board,
wonderful.
didn't get one. Okay.
I do know Chris Martin made a purchase when he was on the board. I don't know. Maybe he had to resign or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but, or
Not
you
recuse
recuse,
yourself, but
Okay.
recuse your vote.
So that's probably something that we should also discuss.
You got that, Ms. Brown?
Ms. McIntyre?
Okay.
I think Chris can get one of these.
Okay,
They need
so-
this package.
Utilization plan?
They with the school then, you know.
So we still need remarks from individual board members. With permission, would you allow the public to make comments? Should we do that before or after the board?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't sit all this time. They should speak first.
Should we have remarks from board members first or?
No.
No, just public.
public.
They don't wait.
So at this,
They listen to Sister Carolyn and President Green all night long.
No, it is.
come on, it is.
Okay.
You take care of it.
Okay,
I know that's
all
right.
right, so before we move to that, so we're wrapping up. Are we done with next steps
Yeah.
with that? Okay, so we're moving on to comments from the public. At this time, the board will hear any comments from the public. Is there anyone present from the public who wishes to address the board? Just one at a time? Okay, let's respect the comments from the public. Go ahead, Ms. Perkins.
Okay, I'm Claudia Perkins for those that don't know. I'm an activist in this community, and I've raised all my children here in the community, all Vikings, but anyway.
That's important.
It's important though too. I asked, Pastor Kevin, I said, what about Norman? He said the community gutted it. When you are closed schools, why don't you put the kids up and secure them so people can't vandalize them like that? You know, well, but
Give her 3 minutes, please.
and then I know any number of people. There's a gentleman at my church. He's a deacon. And he's also the director of Wayne Community College. He is interested in a couple of different buildings because he wants to bring some revenue to the city. But if you all go through that packet first and get all those bids, you can cut your deficit right there and then go on with the rest of your business. It just makes sense to me. Do that first and get rid of the buildings that, and bring that revenue to the board. You see what I'm saying? And then, you'll try to dig your way out of a lot of holes.
So
That's what I'm saying. It just makes sense. Common sense. But there are a lot of community members that have a lot of good ideas for uses to bring our community back. And that's what we want to do, bring the community back. So if you sell all the properties, you might not have a headache that you think you got. You know what I'm saying? Get that revenue back into the school board. Make sense?
yes.
Okay. That's all I got.
Okay. Ms. Hazard?
I have a question. I live near a Zimmerman school and it's never been secured. So people go in there and, when they had those adult classes, there's tons of stuff in there that was worth money, nobody took out. And somebody said they went in there, but I like a reading room, might have no room for a reading room, those huge, they were doing classes there. That's cool, there's ton of stuff from those classes. What a waste of money to leave it all there. People pay money for that stuff. But they just locked and left everything in there. The kids go in there, light it on fire, it's not secure, the windows are broke. And it's too bad that they just deserted it and just left everything there without selling it, without nothing. And I don't know. It's just a waste of money to leave all that there. Leaving them, tons of them, and all this junk from these classes they have, these have adult ed, but not adult ed, what is it, community ed? Stuff over there, like you could take a class, pottery, adult pottery down there and stuff. Yeah. Sewing classes they have. And just walk away and leave all that machinery is a waste of money. Why wasn't ever taken out? Yeah.
Hey, peanut gallery. All right.
Hey, let me start by saying, when you close the schools, Mr. Dr. Lopez, he had a mapping on how much it would cost for moving this kid to pay attention to that also, because you might be thinking that you're saving money over here, but you're spending more money over here in transportation. So you might end up defeating the purpose by closing, say, Nethercutt and Freeman and shipping them over to Eisenhower. It's going to cost more money to bus them all over there, where it would have been cheaper to take some and put them over at Potter and take some. But you get the drift. Me, myself, I was there when they talked about closing schools before. And Casey Lester, he said something, and those parents lit it to him. He tried to poke his pot. There was some parents from Brownell, and I mean, they cut into him deep. Then Eisenhower, and they was talking about closing Eisenhower. They came up in there.
Yeah.
You spoke about it. Y'all getting ready to take a blow, right? But how can you soften that blow?
Yeah.
You can soften that blow by going out to those schools right now. It's 11 schools, you got 11 days. You go talk to them parents and let them know, hey, listen, y'all, everybody have to take or lose something here. Because if we don't lose a little bit, we're going to lose a lot. So you start showing them these plans, and you start showing them why you have to shut the school down. You only got 55 students here. We can't keep it open just for 55 students. We have to remove those students and take them somewhere else so that we can save the whole district, not just one school, because we might end up losing 11 schools instead of just one. So you all have to be proactive about going out there to the community, feeding this to them so that they won't fall over into a big old molehill or something, man. And at the same time, we have to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Because y'all are in a crunch. When I'm talking about closing schools, y'all need to be talking about strategic plan and building schools at the same time. It doesn't have to be in this discussion, but at the same time, the next day, start talking about opening new schools. Because what's going to happen when y'all talking about Doyle Wright, it only held 300 some students. You fix up that school, it's going to be new students coming, and it might only hold 380. So y'all got to look at when y'all renovate something, it's going to bring some new students because they're going to say, hey, I'm going to a new school. So you got to give yourself a buffer also, because you might get 50 new students because you've been renovated and they want to go and smell this fresh, brand new school. So I'll take you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity. You all got some heavy work to do, but I just want to share a couple experiences. I want to give a thumbs up and a shout out to the Fantastic Four on this board. I really do, because none of this means anything if we don't hold on to our public school system. Right.
you can do work and do all this good stuff for somebody else
Yeah,
to come along and snatch up your work.
yeah.
So I want to keep you lifted and encouraged because this, in these times, with the charter school movement, you all are the only ones that can stand between public education
That's right.
and privatization.
That's right.
So I wanted to underscore that. And I wanted to share a little bit of experience about schools. Years and years ago, Door Rider was a gifted program. And it was where that students from other districts could go to Door Rider. Door Rider was in the hood. They're across the street from the furniture store, down the street from the liquor store,
Right.
and all of that. But parents would drive their kids from Grand Blanc and Fitton to go to that school
That's true.
because of what was going on inside.
Yep.
So don't keep talking about bricks and mortar. People will go, they will storm hell for their kids to get a good education. And those parents, just like over there with the vaccine, when they found out it was at Northwestern, they didn't have a problem going over there. But you have to have something to inspire people. And that gifted program was in the hood, but people would drive to the hood because they knew something good was happening inside. So don't just get hung up on bricks and mortar. And then my final, and I had another thing, I can't think of it now, but again, just keep your nose to the grindstone, and it's all about public education. Oh, this is what I was gonna say, is touching on what Art said. When I tell you we got a budget problem, you're gonna have to up out of here. If you don't want a storm, because I don't care what you say, I don't care what the state said about what you can do and what you can't. When people see it's a lot of money coming into this district, you're gonna have a problem explaining to me why you got to close my school. So what you have to do is say, even though this school is gonna close, guess what? Next year, you're going to a better place.
Amen.
That's what you have to do. You have to say, yeah, it might feel bad to close your school, but guess what? When you go over here, it's going to 100 times magnify the quality of education that you're getting here. So please, make the bad with the good. Make parents want to do and join you in your big plan for their kids. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
I just like to, I always had a concern about the things that they're teaching in school. Back when we went to school, we had all those types of programs. You could go to Central and learn to be a mechanic.
Nice.
You know, I mean, life skills, things like that, that you can go right out of school and just don't have to be, if you didn't create a business, you would have a skill that you could offer someone. They don't have those types of things anymore. I know we're in the computer era and everything, but we still need skills like that. We need plumbers, we need electricians. I mean, they have all these types of courses that kids can take once they get to a certain grade. I'd like to see if we could possibly get things like that back into the curriculum. Because a lot of kids may not be college material, but they may be more like on the trade basis. So I think, you know, if we could try to work something to programs back into the system like that, it would really encourage. And then like this said over here, you may be having people come from another Grand Blanc back into the community.
Yes.
So that's something I always wanted to see if we could get back to that.
Amen.
You know, and I really think that would help, because I hate to keep seeing our kids go out there, you know, out into the suburbs and everything, you know, to get an education. You know, when they could really, we could give them a something that they would want to come back into the city, that the parents would want them to come to our school to learn how to do. That's, yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd just like to piggyback on what Estella just said.
Point of order. You had your 3 minutes.
Oh,
You have to.
take it with somebody else. Take one of mine, I don't feel like it. Take it to
Is that?
All right, okay. Okay, well, I ran the Delphi class, so I know a lot of former skilled trades people that have already told me, because that was one of the scenarios for one of the buildings that we were looking at, to put some trades back in there. And these people said they were volunteers. So there's a lot of opportunity in our community. We just got to offer some stuff. That's all I want to say. All right.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you all for hearing us.
Is that all from the public? Everyone from the public who wishes to address the board?
That's what you want to do. You can't be prejudiced.
No.
I missed that.
No.
Go ahead, Laura.
Go ahead. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. All right, you guys. Okay, we're not passing around the candy bucket ever again. Remarks, so now I'm gonna take remarks from individual board members.
Yeah, okay. To the board as a whole, in our package, we had the strategic draft plan, everybody. You know, the strategic draft plan, you have a copy of it. I think that we should go ahead and be looking at that, making what we want on it, the requests that we want on, or whatever changes we want on it, so it won't be delaying. We should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And well, you got your 2 fingers off.
2 minutes.
No, there's not a time.
I would like to regain my.
There's not. Order. Okay, this is remarks from board members, so we're allowed to give our remarks.
Okay, what I'm saying is that now that we have the draft copy, we all have the same copy. And we just look through it and go through it and see what it is that we want the strategic plan to say. So when we listen to the board, so we can begin to move forward. Can we agree to that?
I agree with that.
While we're working on this, we can be working on that.
We should.
And we should be working on that. It's not a whole lot, it's just me. Looking at the draft, I like what I saw. And if we just keep it going that way, like the board wants, then we should be in good standing and we can move forward.
Are you referencing, if I may ask,
The-
are you referencing the addendum that you?
Yeah, the addendum that everybody.
Is that what the board is understanding?
We gonna
Or
study it
Talking
all.
about the original.
Not the original.
No, there's no
You
addendum.
had mentioned
Do
that.
you have that copy with the draft? Everybody should have it in there. Did you put it in that
I
packet?
did not.
I thought you made copies. That's when I brought
I
it
did
in.
make copies, but I can get you clarified. Oh, that's your timer. No, I'm just
Yeah, but
kidding.
isn't there one that came out since then?
It's not, yeah, that's it right there. She's gonna get, can you get that?
I absolutely.
But isn't there one that came out after that?
Yes, the
that's the
things
one
we
we need to
removed
focus
from it that we didn't agree to.
Right.
Is this the one that we should be working from that says draft?
We're working
Mo
from
got a
it.
copy of it, she's gonna bring it to you, and that's the one we all should be on the same page. So when we're reading together, everything should be the same, and we make our changes on the direction that the board wants to go, and we can move forward. That's a fair.
Right, so Chris, you have the draft copy?
She didn't put it in.
Yeah.
the
Okay,
packet.
so
Yeah,
the
that would
new
be
copy we're not using.
Yeah.
We're going
I think
on the
I'm sure.
draft copy.
Just give one, just in case.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
That is board agreed upon.
Mhm. Okay, and all your stuff.
Right.
Are you, do you have anything
Well,
else
our
that
stuff,
you're
we won't-
saying?
Yeah, our stuff, yeah, we sure did.
Joyce, are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm done. Can't stop interrupting.
I'm done.
I just thank everyone. I appreciate everyone. Still learning a lot of things, and not to give some of our board members candy during the meeting. Learn that.
God.
So, but in all seriousness, I appreciate everyone, the public, Brother Woodson, Sister Claire, Precious Sister Ann, everyone, Brother Parker, he didn't say nothing. Miss Murphy, Miss Dunphy, we appreciate you. I think I can speak for the entire board. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be fine. You just got to keep plowing through. We can get there. We have some of the most intelligent people in this room. And we just have to stay at it and let the noise stay outside. That's all we have to remember. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, you can go.
And
Thank
Joyce,
you.
you had something else that you wanted to, you wanted to mention that one. Okay.
Oh, we mentioned it, oh, we're gonna need that organization update. Do you want one? We need one more copy if you got one.
Okay, Carol, did you have comments that you
Oh,
wanted?
I'm sorry.
No, we're just going around the table, if
Yeah,
permission. Okay.
First, I'd like to say, I know it was probably troublesome for some of you guys, but me and Miss Green has done some great work over here.
Yes, y'all have. You sharing it with the board?
We shared it with y'all, all the great ideas. All the great ideas we busted out at the table, you know. But
You said we didn't have to follow
you
rules.
guys, you know, brilliant, you know, you rough.
Okay,
But I
come on
like
with
to
it.
say, y'all so rude, y'all so rude
Okay,
to me.
you said we didn't have to follow rules. Okay.
Okay, so, I think today was a good day.
You will.
I agree with Dr. Joyce. Let's look at our strategic plan. Let's make some tough decisions. We got 10 months for sure, or maybe less than that. About 10 months, 9 months. So we're gonna have to do the heavy lifting. I think today was good. Let's look at the strategic plan. Let's make some hard decisions. Let's let Ms. Donpre do her thing, and let's look at our dollars and truly make some things happen. I agree with Ms. Claudia. We gotta start selling off these buildings that we know we are no longer interested in. We spoke about the land separation. I still wanna see that happen because there will be no new land manufactured, okay? And we can get rid of the buildings, but to keep the land, I think is detrimental because if this district grows and if we are blessed, like I see we can be blessed if we do the hard work and the honest work, the district can grow. The students are out there, they're just not in our district. And like Ms. Claudia said, and this young lady said, that's because we're not offering up what we used to offer up. We lost our skill set, okay? That hurt us. We lost our early child care development.
Driver's ed.
That hurt us. We lost driver's ed. My thought on that is, when you lose the big pieces and the profitable things to anything, even if you own a business, anytime somebody's breaking you down and take the best that you have to offer, you're left with the debt and the problems, because that's what they're not going to take from you, okay? So that's what we're left with. So that's what we have to build off of. We have to hang on to what we have. And we have to look at where we've been, because somebody broke us down to this. We were winning at one point with all those buildings. We are here by design. So we have to get out of this situation by design. And how we do that is like she said, people want their kids to do better than they did. If we can show them how we can offer their students a true opportunity, even if they have IEP, if we put skilled trades back into our programs,
Solar panels.
okay? If we put the technology, the automotive, the hands-on stuff, the computer employment and technology pieces, we can grow this district. You can get some of these buildings. That's why I said keep the land in case you need to build a new building one day. So you will have somewhere to build. It don't cost a lot of money to hang on the land. The taxes is dirt cheap. I can tell you about land, okay?
Yes, you can.
So hang on to the land. The district will grow if we are honest. If we are honestly trying. Because yes, the population has dropped, but people are still going to have babies, okay? I don't want to focus on what we don't have and what everybody else is doing. Let's focus on what we do have and what we can do.
That's right.
We can get those students back.
Yeah.
We got to look at our banking, economics, stock investing. We don't have anything like that in our district. That's getting your students ready for tomorrow to help them understand finances. When you don't have it, what we doing now, talking about the budget. We are a poverty-stricken district. We know that. Why aren't we teaching our kids about budget? That's the main thing we need to be looking at. Showing our kids how to live within their means. Home ec. We lost home ec. That's basic survival. That's cooking. That's cleaning. That's how to take care of your kids. That's how to take care of your kids when you're a young parent, when you're a teenage parent. We have to look at the situations that stricken our district and be honest about how we are gonna service our students. Okay, if we got special needs students, we know like she said, they probably ain't going to college. We got to have some skilled programs so these people can earn a living. We have got to quit being a part of the school to prison pipeline.
Amen.
We know we can't stop that, but we can stop it from happening in our district. We ain't got to usher our kids to the penitentiary. We can sit right here at this table and usher them to the job market.
Thank you.
That's it. I'm sorry, y'all.
Amen. Amen.
Cybersecurity is in hiding now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And don't forget the solar panel.
Yeah, all
Anybody? Go ahead.
I'll be quick in respect of Carrie's time in administration and my board members and the public. I just want to say thank you to everybody sitting at this table for doing the hard work, for being committed to do the hard work, for not giving up on doing the hard work because it's hard work, right?
Yes.
The decisions we have to make are sometimes heartbreaking because we've been down this road before, Carrie, about the conversation on closing schools. I was totally against it. I couldn't see why, what, no. But it's just the reality. So I just want to continue to be here to support, and I thank you guys for your support. And what she said about memorabilia was something, I think she was talking about stuff in Zimmerman. But, you know, they made me, right. So I'm saying that to say that we have memorabilia in buildings. I think we still have some in buildings. I don't know. But we need to do something about it or look into that because it breaks my heart that the history and the legacy that we have in our buildings, maybe they're just rotting away. I don't know what we have in there still, and I'm speaking of the northern and specifically because I know it's been vandalized so many times. And all the things we've done to try to prevent it, it hasn't worked.
Yes.
So we need to look into that. I'm not sure what we can do, but I want us to do something, right? So we talked about that briefly before, but that's on my top threes that I had y'all to do and y'all didn't do. But that's what you did see yours. You were right.
From my college, but nobody took it out.
Right.
So
I want to just say, I'm going to close by saying thank you. Carrie, you know you my girl. I appreciate you, girl. Ms. Donpray, thank you so much.
Yes.
Mr. Jones, my guy. Mr. Murphy, thank you. And the public, I appreciate you guys. That's it for me. Be quiet.
So just to piggyback on that, Bob, I'll call it the destruction of buildings when we close them. We need to keep that in mind with Southwestern.
Yeah.
When we do that. We need to also keep, many contracts are coming due this year. If we do nothing, they automatically renew.
Yeah, they do it every year.
And
Not all of them.
Every year.
what's that?
Not all of them.
Yeah.
We have the RFP.
And then tomorrow we're 1:30 at Dole Ryder.
Oh, yeah.
The walkthrough.
Tomorrow.
And then our next meeting won't be until Monday.
Is it Monday at 5:30 is the finance subcommittee meeting?
it was either if you want to do morning or afternoon. I wasn't sure what the decision was.
I thought we talked about the morning,
10 a.m.
but
It will work for me.
would you prefer it in the morning than in the in the evening? That's what we were thinking about.
Absolutely.
So, okay,
Finance, got that. Okay.
10.
I will move everything.
Okay.
We're thinking about the subcommittee, we discussed our next one earlier, so that
I don't think he.
So, yeah, you're not sorry. That caused a real ruckus. Okay. We'll announce the meeting and at 10 o'clock on Monday.
Yeah, 1 hour
Yes.
plus minus.
Minus probably.
Yeah, we don't have the next agenda. We don't, we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
We want
So please continue, Chris. Sorry.
If we shut it down.
Where was that? So tomorrow at the 1:30. Next week for what? Wednesday?
We haven't picked it, we're saying for this next meeting.
No, there's
No,
for the
no,
calendar.
for-
Yes,
for
yes,
calendar.
sorry, yes.
And then forthcoming is like when you get your, yeah, then we'll schedule another finance committee of the whole meeting.
To help, Miss Monica always sends out the schedule at the beginning of the week for all of the meetings.
That's new in the last few months.
No, she did.
I do it every Friday.
She's on leave, so, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Y'all ate up all the candy.
Are you finished?
Yeah, yes.
Back to the strategic plan, do we wanna put maybe like what, next week, or give us a week or two to come back? So we all can be on the same page, if we start at the same time?
We got a finance sub and then we have a committee of the whole next week.
So no, the week after that.
The week after that, we have interviews for new board member and a regular board meeting.
You got, I told you, you're not listening. You're not listening to the preacher. You got some heavy lifting.
Can we poll?
Yeah, they'll do a call.
Okay.
All right, is that it, Joyce?
You want to ask Candace?
Yeah, and I would like to, offer Carrie.
I would just like to say again, a good night. We're moving in the right direction. We see where we need to go. It's not anyone's desire to close a building, but we do want to continue to think first and foremost about our students. And I'd like to reiterate what you had mentioned about changing what the message is. The message isn't that we're closing buildings and we're taking away. It's what can we give to the students and to the teachers and put into the classroom. What does that look like? There's been great programs mentioned tonight. Those are things that, we can start to incorporate and talk about. We're going to close you, we're going to move you out of Pierce, but hey, we've got this going on at this school where you're going to go. You can control that narrative. It is all in your hands. And like you said, we have to all be on the same page because you can't be, talking out of both sides.
Yeah.
We have to just talk about the positives and what we're doing in Flint schools.
We're opening Doral Ryder and it's gonna be renovated and those kids can go to Doral Ryder and it'll be a new beautiful
Go ahead and mark it
facility.
first.
And it doesn't have any mold or mildew, new ventilation, we're thriving. Yes.
So, we talked about like DTM, you guys have a pool. There's so many great things about this school district. Let's talk about that. Let's shout that from the roof. Let's focus on the good things that we're doing and what we have to offer, not relish what or bemoan what we had in the past. We have to leave that there. We have to move forward and work together.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'd like to say that it really touched me, Carol, when you said about liquidating, about a company coming in and buying out and liquidating and taking the best and leaving the worst and leaving the debt and the things that nobody wants to deal with. And it was by design. There is still a design out there to privatize our schools, to shut them down or to consolidate them with the county. And so, one of the reasons why I'm on the board is to bring the community back in the community schools, not the segregated version that we had back, through the 70s, but a true community school, a vibrant community. And I'm just really encouraged by the way that we're working together. It had always been my hope and my vision to sit around a table and to suspend some of the rules and just roll up our sleeves and get down to work of the business or of the district. And I'm just feeling some sort of way right now. I really
We fought hard to be here together.
This time last year, oh my God, it was just a totally different board. And I'm not saying we're perfect.
No.
Nobody's saying that, but we all care. We really want to salvage, to save, and not just to save, but to
Create.
To create. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited
I
because
agree.
it's like even Dr. Sullivan talked. We've got a water filtration system that is second to none in the country. And it's those things
Yeah,
that we can say,
that's right.
look what we have.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
you know, we're gonna be the Flint schools
Mhm.
again, which is gonna be the flagship for the rest of the
We are
nation.
still the Flint.
We are
of
still
unity
the
schools.
They're gonna recognize,
That's right.
You
And,
forgot to mention something.
okay, yeah.
Mr. Jones, in regards to these schools being renovated and doing all the work on it, I suggest that we get some, what that term was, community
Benefit agreement.
a community benefit agreement. In other words, we had a gentleman came, he was posted for a job. We didn't give him that job for whatever reason. But that person has enough, I think that we should create, anybody coming to do work in this city, the community need to benefit from it. And someone, we're doing these RFPs and getting these contractors in here, they need to pull some people from the community to
That's
do
right.
something. So, they say she can hold up a sign for $17 an hour and say stop. So we need to employ our people as well. Do some type of agreement, you know, we're bringing people in to do work in our district. And we got some talented young men here that we need to sit down and have that type of agreement.
Sounds like a skilled trades program. I like that.
And so I think that would be fair. The community see us hiring people in the community, renovating our building, and there can be somebody's mother or father out there in the community.
Or our
Teaching the same,
graduates. Or our graduates.
Yeah, or our graduates. So if that's possible, I don't know what it would take to do that, but we really need to start that immediately. If you're gonna work it for us and get some bid from us, then you're gonna have to bring in somebody.
Employ some people in our city. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I appreciate all of you. Do any board members have any other questions before we adjourn?
We'll
Okay.
hear about the meeting on Monday, right? You'll hear about that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was gonna do that.
You said, do we have any other comments?
No, I said, do you have any questions before we
One
adjourn?
last real quick one. There was an email today about the board president signing on a
Oh, for the.
legal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need an executive session for that?
She did.
No.
No.
We voted on that.
Yeah, we already approved that, but Chris, yeah.
No, we already did it, and it was just something to keep us all in
In
contact.
the loop.
Okay, so seeing no further discussion, I declare the finance committee of the whole meeting adjourned at 8:36. Thank you, and everyone have a good night.